Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow underway on this Wednesday edition. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network, which includes the live stream on YouTube through the OutKick channel, live on Twitter, X, Facebook, outkick.com, and wherever you choose to check out the show, which also includes this great radio partner. We say thank you for that. If you're listening live from 6th and Peabody with EHA Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, another jam-packed show. Coming up in 20 minutes, the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye, is on the show today. Always a great conversation, and look forward to getting his take on the value of NFL running backs now compared to his great year of 1989. Things have changed. Joe Theismann, also later this hour. Theismann, he came in second in the Heisman vote.
The man could sling it. However you want to pronounce his last name, he got the job done.
Commanders, Irish, a lot to discuss there. Plus, in hour number 2, Trey Wallace will join us with tons across the college football landscape that kicks off this weekend. Chad, good afternoon.
Hutton is Nigerian Nightmare, one of the best nicknames of all time and the most memorable for a guy who had like a Halley's Comet type career.
6 years, right? 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, but I mean, he was just dominant for 2 or 3. Right? He's one of those guys.
He didn't play until 23 years old.
Yeah, I think of like Terrell Davis, who got in the Hall of Fame based on 2 or 3, 4 years.
And postseason performances, too.
Christian Okoye was one of the biggest stars in the NFL in the late 90s for like a 1.5 to 2 year period, even though he played for 6. But that nickname is eternal.
260 pounds, and he was faster than Michael Irvin and Jerry Rice. That's why he was intimidating. And he was nicknamed that by one of his teammates.
He was almost ahead of his time because now, these jumbo athletes, like I don't know that Christian Okoye is now Derrick Henry would probably disagree with this, with the size and speed and everything else, but I don't know that he's a running back today. If he's coming through the ranks, I think he's getting after a quarterback at his height.
He may not want to be a running back today based on
No, I think he's making more and probably playing longer in a different position.
Sure.
So we can get into about it, but I think about that with a number of guys that athletically were ahead of their time in some way. And I think Christian Okoye was one of those guys. And this was in an era where the best athlete, you put it running back and let them carry the ball. And that's not the case now. Oftentimes the best athlete will be a wide receiver or someone who's getting after the quarterback in some way.
Or now a corner.
To disrupt the game.
Yeah.
Or a corner. And Christian Okoye, we'll ask him about that. If he thinks, if he was coming up in the ranks today, would he be slotted to a different position?
It's a great question, and he'll join us coming up in 20 minutes. Speaking of nightmares, that's where we start with our headlines of the day. Scorched earth, and that's what's going on with the Yankees currently. Suffering their longest losing streak since 1982. It's now 9 straight losses for the Bronx Bombers, who are doing everything but that at bat. They're bombing in the standings. Now 5 games below 500. It has been since 1992 that they finished the season with a losing record. And it's been since 1990 that they finished dead last in their division. Here we go. It's the race for last place in New York, and it doesn't seem like it's ending anytime soon, given the fact that over these 9 games, Chad, they're hitting 176, and they have scored 21 runs in 81 innings.
Yeah, no one that's not a Yankees fan feels the least bit sorry for this team because they've had so much success. They will tout their 27 championships to anyone and everyone. I saw Spike Lee being interviewed at a Braves game when they brought up the score in the current game and the record between the two teams. At that point in the season, what did Spike Lee do? Pointed to his hat where he had 27 different pens for all the championships for the Yankees. So that's what Yankees fans always have to hang over everyone, and good for them. And good for them for having this much success over the last 25 years, really since Derek Jeter got there. And now I'll say good for the rest of the baseball world that they can sit and watch them in misery carrying on with this losing streak they haven't had since the year I was born in 1982. So I think this is good for everyone else that's not a Yankees fan. Yankees fans out there, I'm sure, hate this. They're not going to get any sympathy from the rest of the league and any other fan base because of that success that they've had.
They played tonight. They could go for 10 straight losses. That would be the first time since 1913. So it's been 110 years since they've had 10 straight. The record, by the way, 12 losses in 1908. I think the rest of Baseball America is looking for that streak, and that goes to what Curt Schilling told us yesterday. It's only a matter of time when Aaron Boone's going to be blamed for this.
Well, score one for baseball mattering even to teams that don't spend at the highest level of salaries.
Yeah.
And that just because you can outspend people doesn't guarantee success. Examples: Mets, Yankees, Padres. All spend out the wazoo. All go for broke, seemingly now every single year. All three of those teams struggling, not going to be in the playoffs. Meanwhile, you've got these stories like Tampa Bay, Baltimore, and others that are doing great. The Arizona Diamondbacks in the playoff hunt. Look at some of these teams battling for playoff spot. Now, that's not to say that not having a high payroll isn't a good thing. The Philadelphia Phillies are going to be in the playoffs. They were in the World Series a year ago. They spend a ton. The Atlanta Braves are right around the top 10 in payroll. They're the best team in baseball right now. The Astros. I mean, look, there are teams that spend that are doing well in the standings also, but this is a season that's a good example of it's not just money that drives the sport. You got to be smart. Good decision-making and building a roster, good drafting strategy. And we've seen that with certain teams, and at least for 1 year, you can't say that about the Yankees. Now, I do believe, and we talked to Curt Schilling about this yesterday, I think this is a 1 year step back for them. I think they will readjust. They'll be just fine a year from now. They still have the roster to win and win big. I think that will happen. I think the Mets will rebound next year also. But for everyone that doesn't spend like those teams spend, it's been a glorious summer.
Well, for those wondering, they've had 19 streaks of 9 wins or more since they've had a streak like this of 9 losses straight.
And another reason that no one that's not in pinstripes cares at all.
That's right.
Or is going to cry a single tear about the Yankees struggling.
Chad, are we crying a tear for the Chicago White Sox? They're cleaning house, but at the same time, the reports are that Jerry Reinsdorf, 6 years left on the stadium lease, they could be on the move. And it could be right here to Music City, which is always mentioned as an expansion franchise or a relocation destination for a team on the move. Reports are that Reinsdorf could be considering, he's 87, could be considering selling a majority stake of the White Sox if they're going to be in a situation where they're not going to stay in Chicago or the surrounding area, if they're not going to come to terms on a new stadium or what's going to happen there with the city. And if that's the case, what does that mean for Nashville, who is always the first city to be mentioned in this? And what's up with Chicago? The Bears acquire Arlington Heights, then the tax increase is discussed, and all of a sudden they're backing out on moving forward with a new stadium in a property that they purchased that was a racetrack. And now the White Sox are not denying that they could be on the move without a new restructured lease and a new ballpark. This is not good for the city, and this is now 2 pro franchises trying to stake claim to the fact it's put up or shut up. And so far, the city hasn't done it with the Bears, and the White Sox could be on the move too. It's not the Cubs, but the White Sox could be leaving Chicago.
I am a traditionalist through and through with a lot of things. When you look at the historic aspect of sports, I value that. I've always honored it. I do think it's time to ask the question, does Chicago really need 2 Major League Baseball teams? Is that a market now? And I know the population and all of that, and it is America's second city. And if New York has 2 teams and LA has 2 teams, Chicago should have 2 teams. But how much of that is established fact of where we are right now in 2023 versus the Chicago White Sox have been around forever? The Chicago Black Sox scandal was in 1919. This team has been there for a long time in Chicago. But when we look at the realities of business and sport right now in 2023, is Chicago really a place that everyone that Hutton and I right now can stand up on this table for and argue that is a city deserving of 2 Major League Baseball teams? Is the White Sox fan base in attendance that of deserving a second Major League Baseball team in a city? Is that not a Chicago Cubs town, first and foremost? And how many broken hearts will there be if the White Sox leave? It was a huge uproar when the Brooklyn Dodgers left for L.A. and the New York Giants left the Polo Grounds for San Francisco. And Major League Baseball has done just fine. in those markets years later, would Major League Baseball and the city of Chicago be just fine if the White Sox up and vanished and went to Nashville or Charlotte or Montreal or anywhere else? I think they would. I don't know that this would be that big of a deal, quite frankly, if the White Sox left Chicago. I look forward to hearing from people from Chicago to tell me where I'm wrong on this, but I look at 2023 reality of pro sports, Hutton, and I think, is Chicago really worthy of two Major League Baseball teams?
Think about this, though. It's also, it's not just where we are in 2023. It's where, and you're going back to the city. You mentioned it's a Cubs city. It is a Bears town. It is a Bears city. And even the Chicago Bears can't get what they're looking for in terms of the stadium. That is what's concerning. It's the equivalent of the Cubs when you think of the Chicago Bears. If you're a White Sox fan or a Cubs fan, you're wearing Bears gear walking around the city in the preseason, right? So, like, you're pulling double duty. You're going to the matinee and then going to the preseason game at night, walking the city and having been there for preseason ball. It's weird. And you've got the Illinois State Sports Authority that was responsible for building guaranteed rate stadium or field or whatever it is. You have the city itself, and you also have the lease that's 6 years up, and they haven't heard from the city on that. So the White Sox are putting this out there now. But if we're just going by recent results, they're not going to get the response that they want. Also, Nashville doesn't have a stadium. It's going to be 2027 whenever the Titans build theirs and open theirs. So 6 years from now, that's too soon for Nashville to even be a relocation destination based on where they are with the political realm of, is baseball right for Nashville in the current market?
Yeah, and I think, and I don't want to turn this into a political argument, but I do think politics are going to shape this more than anything else.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's the cities that are willing to play ball and give a bunch of tax breaks and help out billionaire owners that also want to bring billions of dollars to the city with a professional sports team, and who's willing to make that trade-off and who isn't.
And property taxes.
And you're right, Hutton. Chicago has shown itself as a city and Illinois as a state that's not willing to play that game with their pro sports teams, as beloved as they are. And starting with the Chicago Bears, it's just not happening for them. We're 6 years away from this lease expiring for the ballpark there in the south side of Chicago. But if they find a willing dance partner that gives them more, that's hungry for Major League Baseball, that wants it in their city, like in Nashville or any other place that even Rob Manfred has speculated is in line to get an expansion team or another team by relocation, then those owners are going to leave, even 87-year-old Jerry Reinsdorf. I'm guessing I didn't look this up, there's got to be a succession plan for him.
Sure, I mean, he's with the Bulls too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, someone, I don't know his child situation, but someone's set to inherit quite the little Chicago sports empire.
Yeah. Reggie Bush would like to inherit his Heisman Trophy again and his records that were set in the 2005 season at USC. So he had a 10-year ban from USC. He was not to be affiliated with the Trojan program. That was up in 2020. And now he is filing a defamation lawsuit against the NCAA and pointing to all the reports about impermissible pay-for-play benefits that his lawyer is saying is inaccurate. More or less, they want his records restored because the Heisman Trust, they're pointing to his stats and his season being vacated by the NCAA as to why the Heisman is no longer on the trophy case for Reggie Bush, and it's sitting empty for that season. We all saw what happened there, and given the landscape that we're currently watching unfold in front of us with NIL and everything else, while you still can't sign up for pay-for-play, whatever the $10,000 impermissible moving expenses and home benefits for family members of Reggie Bush, that seems like a drop in the bucket compared to some of the numbers we're seeing now. That being said, the defamation aspect of this is intriguing, and what they're calling false, given the fact it's 2023, and we're going back to 2009, 2010, when all of this went down.
It's amazing because I think back to Rocky IV when the Russian was cut and there was blood And that's when it was, okay, this is happening now. There is blood in the water, and the Sharks are swarming. That's the NCAA right now. The NCAA is the Russian. It's Ivan Drago, and the NCAA is cut. And now everyone is seeing the opening of, you guys are really full of it.
Yeah.
We've paid you respect for a long time, but now the Supreme Court has ruled that you're kind of full of it, and other things that you said that happened that was violations. Well, is it really a violation when you look at things today from that? You know, when you look at in hindsight, it was then, but should it have been? And people are coming out of the woodwork to challenge that authority and that establishment. Reggie Bush is just the latest. Here's the deal. They should just give him his Heisman back. Let bygones be bygones. I mean, come on.
But
what was he really guilty of?
Did it damage his reputation? I mean, I don't view Reggie Bush any different than...
Yes, in that one thing that pops up immediately when you think of Reggie Bush is the guy who had his Heisman Trophy taken away along with O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's part of his bio. So from that perspective, yes.
But I don't view it as Reggie Bush. I mean, Reggie Bush won the Heisman, though. I still view him as a Heisman winner, and I view his season as valid because we know he wasn't the only one. He was just the one that was the best and won the trophy. Like, I don't...
Yeah, sometimes, though, people just want to win.
Well, and
he wants a win against the NCAA and getting that trophy back. And I don't blame him.
Yeah. But defamation versus just, hey, give me the Heisman back.
Just give it to me.
Coming up, Christian Okoye joins us on Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow.
He has no empathy, heavy dementia, doesn't even know where the hell he is, and thinks the whole world revolves around him. He's literally telling people who lost their loved ones, who lost their homes, who lost their property, who lost their businesses about a 20-minute kitchen fire. That's a kitchen fire. And this jackass goes on and on and on about a kitchen fire. It wasn't he almost lost his home. I mean, do a little research. A kitchen fire. That's all it is. And this guy has the audacity to go in front of people who lost their island, their city, their homes, their livelihoods, their relatives, and discuss himself. And I can't even, I'm speechless. Every time I see it, I get so pissed off, I can't even tell you. I mean, stupid and arrogant are the worst two things a people can have. If you're smart and you're arrogant, you at least know you're arrogant. If you're stupid, like the dude started out last in his class in everything he's ever been. Now let's get that. The dude cheated on his first wife. The dude is stupid. And stupid and arrogant is no way to go through life. It's the deadliest combination. Deadly. Couldn't be a worse combination. And this guy's got it. He's so arrogant and he's so stupid and he's so not out here. And we got to listen to it. We seriously have to listen to this. I thought there was nobody worse that I ever wanted to listen to than George W. Bush. And then Obama came along with his blah, 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 stupid ass stuff. I mean, his idiotic, trying to be on the wall, every wall, trying to be smarter than he is, blah, 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 blah. And now we got this. This is just embarrassing. This just make you mad. This make you mad, and you got to say to yourself, hold the phone, hang on here. This is horrible. This is a horrible human being speaking to people that have lost everything, and this guy is talking about himself, comparing himself. He was so stupid, he stepped off a curb. Now, we're not going to show you the video. He stepped off a curb in front of firefighters in Lahaina, after the biggest wildfire in American history, and jokingly said, oh, the ground's hot. Well, no kidding. They just had the biggest wildfire in American history, you idiot. And he thinks he's being clever, and people guffaw. It's like Peyton Manning. He said, huh. He said, I can't believe that guy's so funny. It is amazing to me. It is astounding to me. It angers me to no end. this jackass, this arrogant fool, gets up there and represents us, and he don't give a rat's double about you or me. Not even kinda. Not even sorta. He don't care about you, me. If he can't promote it, if he can't profit off it, he don't care. It's a career politician, hasn't done a damn thing in his life. I mean, you're sitting there and you've lost everything that you have, and this guy's telling you about, oh, I don't know, a little kitchen fire. Really?
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHA Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Hope to be joined soon by the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye. Coming up in 20 minutes, Joe Theismann will be on the show. Chad, I seem to be, and I know I am, I'm down on Hard Knocks currently. I didn't watch last night. I didn't watch Swamp Kings last night.
I forgot it was on last night. I need to watch episode 3. I've only seen the first 2.
I need Hard Knocks to pick it back up a bit after episode 2, because I want to follow that show like I did a decade ago. Yeah. Meanwhile, the reviews for Swamp Kings have been awful, and my stance is if I hear awful reviews, I don't plan on watching a show to try it out on my own. If I think that the people that I trust, like if Chad were to say, "Hey, this movie's really good, check it out," or "It's not worth it," I know we virtually like the same things, right?
Yeah.
The history factor of Oppenheimer, I was all in, and you said it was very good. I'm all in to go see it. Had you told me, that it was awful, I wouldn't have paid money to go see it. I feel the same way about Swamp.
But you saw it and you liked it.
I did.
Yeah, I just think there's so much stuff out there right now that you can go back and watch that's new, but also there's so much good stuff that you can go back and watch at any time. Here's an example. Hutton, do you know what the most streamed hourly show is right now that's being consumed across the country? It's a show from like 2008 to 2014 from USA Network called Suits.
Really?
Netflix picked it up, and it is lapping everyone else in hours consumed this summer.
Wow.
People just found the show on Netflix, and it aired years ago. It was a popular show for USA. It went like 9 or 10 seasons. But people are watching it because it's a good, entertaining, soft watch. You have hard watches and soft watches. The soft watch is something you could look at your phone or do something else while paying attention to and still follow the plot and understand what's going on and enjoy it. The hard watch is like True Detective season 1, right? Where you're watching for every clue and everything.
Yeah.
So, people want to be entertained, but also there's only so many hours in the day. I'm interested in probably a lot more entertainment than you or most, so I'll watch more. But like you, I need to be really into it if I'm going to even press play, devote time to it. And I'm really into the concept of a deep dive, untold type look story at those Florida teams with all the issues on the field with Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow and all of that. But every review that I've seen of this is essentially that it is a puff piece for the Florida athletic department. That does not interest me in the least. So the fact I'm reading those reviews,
it's a 4-episode deal,
does not get me excited. So I've not brought myself to the point where I can hit play on the first episode. But maybe someone can convince me otherwise.
I've heard one good review from a Florida fan. Have you heard a good review?
I've heard a good review from a buddy of mine in my neighborhood. Shout out Nick, who says it's great. Said the first episode, give it a chance. It's really good, very entertaining. And I guess it's a lot of just expectation. I'm thinking if they're going to get into Aaron Hernandez and different things, which apparently they don't, then I'd be interested in it. It's what we're looking for in this type of documentary. And to me, the reviews I've read, it's not delivering.
The Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye, joins us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. 23 years old is when he played ball. And here we are talking to the most intimidating guy in the NFL in 1989 after not even playing the sport until his 20s. Great to have you back on. Good to visit with you. How are you?
Great, man. Thank you so much for having me back.
What do you think of the running back position right now across the league compared to your era and your dominance and the intimidation factor that offenses were like, especially that Chiefs running game whenever you hit your stride?
Well, I tell you what, that's the talk of the town now because running back position has been looked down upon, but they are still very important position because if you look back to the last Super Bowl the Chiefs won, we started running the ball, especially in the second half. And if you look at Patrick Mahomes' stats, who was the MVP of the game, he threw the ball. The yardage was 182 yards that he had in that game. But we started running the ball in the second half, and we held on to the ball, and that's actually what helped us win that game.
If you were starting over right now, this year, and you're starting your football journey, and coaches are trying to decide where you're going to play, do you think you'd be a running back again, or do you think you'd be someone rushing the passer or playing tight end or playing another position? Because you were certainly different in your time as a running back at your size. Do you think you would have been directed to play a different position? Would you have wanted to play, give another position a shot if you started over today and see the way the game is played?
If I start over today, I'll be an outside linebacker. Of course, because running back position is not an easy position. It's a position where you're expected to be a part of the play, each play throughout the game. We get smacked around a lot, and I loved it. I enjoyed it when I played, but if I had to start over today, I'll be outside linebacker.
And you get paid more if you're an outside linebacker today. And that, I have to think, Christian, there's going to be players starting out that are going to start making business decisions when there's a great athlete, knowing they're going to play Division I, knowing they're going to have a chance at the NFL, when you see the pay structure for an outside linebacker that can rush the passer as opposed to a running back.
Exactly. Today, so much emphasis is laid on the quarterback. Quarterbacks it's a passing league, so of course you got to pay the quarterback. You need a good quarterback on your team in order to win or in order to advance in the playoffs, because it's a passing league. But you still need to run the ball. If you run the ball, it helps your defense. It helps you hold on to the ball, and it helps the whole team. I always talk about the last, when New England were winning their Super Bowls. Tom Brady didn't have that great of stats. He was throwing 200 yards, not too much of a 300-yard passing games, but they ran the ball. But one thing is that they never had a featured back that comes in year after year, like the Eric Dickersons and Walter Paytons and Earl Campbell's and so on and so forth. But they always have different guys run the ball, but they did run it. And it helped their defense. It helped their offense. It helped the whole team to hold on to the ball, you see. So, yes, we are still as running backs are very important in the game.
Christian Okoye, our guest on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here across the OutKick Network. You and Akeem Olajuwon grew up about 8 hours from each other in Nigeria. When did you first hear of Akeem? And it's not like you started playing football at 23. It's not like you weren't a great athlete growing up. When did he learn about you? Did you come across each other prior to your pro careers?
Yes, we did. I heard about Akeem Olajuwon and became a big fan of his when I was in college. I remember watching him play in the national championships when he was still in college. And then, of course, he went to NBA and was playing for the Rockets. And I was a big fan of the Rockets, and I was a big fan of him. And when I was touring to get into the NFL, Houston Oilers at the time flew me to Houston to visit the team, and they had a
Christian Okoye with us
for 2 or 3 days. So I stayed with him. He took me around town, and showed me the town. And it was a great host. And that's when we became friends.
What have you seen from when you started? Of course, those that grow up in Nigeria, they have looked up to you and Akeem. Now the NFL has the International Pathway Program. Where are we today compared to expectations when you left football due to injuries?
Ooh, injuries now is not even nearly as bad as it was. I mean, we still have injuries today because we do report it. Back then, it was never reported. But you hear about injuries because it's being reported today. I'll tell you, for an instance, I remember when we went to Seattle in '89, and my shoulder came out of socket. They put it back in. I went back in the game and played and finished the game. For the rest of the season, every time I hit somebody with my right shoulder, my shoulder will pop out. And I learned to put it back in. No complaints. I never complained, never came off the field. But today, those type of injuries is a season-ending injury. But it's just different today, which is good. It's very good in a good way. Back then, the guys will be, have concussions. They give you a smelling sauce, and you come out of the field for a few plays, and then you go back in. So it's different today.
Would you describe the story you just told in the NFL of your day as tough or stupid? And in contrast, would you describe the NFL of today as smart or soft?
Well, today is smart, not soft. It's smart. They're doing it the right way, I think. And back then, I would say tough, somewhat stupid, because I wouldn't say, go as far as saying stupid, because, back then, guys were just saving their spots on the team. You don't want to say too much, because when you say too much, you'll be looked upon as soft, and you'll be replaced. So guys don't complain so much about their injuries. And I never did. I know most of my teammates who had injuries never complained as much. But today, it's smart to talk about it. When you are injured, you better talk about it, because after you retire and you turn 50, everything comes back to you.
What are you up to now, Christian?
I'm doing several things. I have a foundation, which I started in 1990, working with underprivileged kids. And I have a chapter in Nigeria helping kids back home. And also, I'm the founder and the president of the California Sports Hall of Fame, which keeps me busy.
No doubt about that. Christian Okoye has been our guest. Final thing, is Derrick Henry the closest thing to the Nigerian nightmare that we saw in '89 currently in the league today, and in years past as well, coming through the ranks and the dominance that we've seen?
Well, I will say yes, because there's nobody close to him today in the game. But one thing you have to realize is that, players don't practice tackling anymore. So if you're a big guy that run tough like he does, he will be hard to tackle. Back then when I was playing, man, people were coming from everywhere. They were tackling you with everything they got, trying to get you back. I carried guys on my back, several times. But that will never happen today, because guys will just slide off and he keeps running.
Great to visit with you yet again, and hopefully we can do it in the near future.
Well, thank you so much. One thing I got to say is that I got a book coming out November 7th. If anybody's interested, they should Google Nigerian Nightmare on Amazon to get it.
We will we'll tweet that out as well.
November 7th, you said, Christian?
November 7th.
All right.
Fantastic. We look forward to that.
Nigerian Nightmare. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Christian Okoye
running the California Sports Hall of Fame, and his nickname is in the Nickname Hall of Fame. One of the greatest of all time. Nigerian Nightmare, the name of an upcoming book. I wonder if there's like a fraternity for those tall running backs like Christian. When you ask about Derrick Henry, I think about Eddie George. I think about Jim Brown. I think about guys, over 6'1", that are that good at the running back position.
What's crazy to consider is Henry's playing around 240, 245. He was at 260 in that frame. Also, an inch or two shorter. He's listed at 6'1".
Yeah. But 6'1", 6'2". Derrick Henry's 6'3", 6'4". Standing next to him, the difference in height. It's crazy to think of the size of Okoye. And I loved his answer. He came right out and said, "No, I'd be an outside linebacker.
Yeah.
If I started over in today's game, that's where they would play me, and that's where I'd want to play."
And I think, I said whenever we're debating the pay for the position, I do think, even at the lower level, high schools, middle school ball, kids are going to want to play other positions just based on what they're seeing their favorite athletes do and who's making the headlines, who's getting paid, who's not, and the parents that push certain positions and coaches that want to entice players to play and play a lot. There's even recruiting at the high school ranks, as we well know. So, hey, come play wide receiver here or be quarterback here. You don't have to be running back where you're currently
You got guys in the transfer portal every year in high school football all over the place and going all over the country.
Coming up, from Okoye to Theismann. Joe Theismann jumps on with us. Hot Mike with Hunt and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted,
he bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Sixth the Peabody, our location with EHA Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Our thanks to Christian Okoye for joining us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Coming up in a couple of minutes, Joe Theismann will be with us. Getting him set up on Zoom currently. Looking forward to this chat. Because
Hutton, I don't know about you. You know, we always think about things we knew about in our childhood or heard or saw.
Yep.
When I think being a kid and Sunday night, I hear the voices of Mike Patrick and Joe Theismann on Sunday Night Football. I can hear the cadence of both of them talking back and forth over a Seahawks-Rams game on Sunday night or whatever it was. I just have your childhood memories sort of become flashes and not fully formed memories as years go on.
I really enjoyed Mike Patrick.
And I really have flashes of like my parents' living room and the TV on the floor and Sunday Night Football being on and hearing Mike Patrick and Joe Theismann call the game. It's very fond memories that I have of that team on ESPN for Sunday Night Football. But I always think about that with my childhood. I hear the voice of Joe Theismann every time.
We'll tie in the Washington Commanders here for a moment with Theismann as we hope to be joined by him in a second. Terry McLaurin is undergoing he's got a issue with his foot. And they had x-rays and there was like a kind of good report from Ron Rivera on McLaurin and his, how they hope the recovery will be, instead of actually saying what the x-rays determined in all of this, Chad?
Yeah, it was very telling quote, possibly. The quote is, Ron Rivera, this is on the status of Terry McLaurin. For the most part, Terry's x-rays are negative, and his MRI showed the same thing. For the most part. Started with for the most part, ended with for the most part on Terry McLaurin. Not great.
Yeah.
Someone retweeted, I saw that was really funny, and said, for the most part, Ronnie Lott's hand is okay. And, I mean, that's a good way to put it, right?
Yeah,
it sounds like either he's just not trying to give definitive answers on something, or what he's trying to say is like he's trying to avoid saying they found something else.
I mean,
but I don't know that you find that in an X-ray.
For the most part, to me, that means he doesn't really know what the X-rays showed.
Yeah, or
without trying to.
Without trying to say I have no idea.
Yeah, he did have X-rays, and we've done some tests, and for the most part, he's okay. That doesn't meet the standard of the regular season injury report. Same goes
for the most part.
When Will Levis was hurt last week in Minnesota, it was lower body injury, is what Koharski reported. And that was all he could get. Like, what is this, hockey?
Yeah, the hockey, upper body, lower body.
But that's more than what you get in college football.
They don't have to give anything. In college, I mean, there badly needs to be injury reports in college football.
Well, LSU's doing it.
Yeah, there needs to be some standard, though, across
I agree.
conferences or however you want to do it. There's different rules for different conferences, but there's got to be a standard of questionable, doubtful, probable, whatever, and give a little bit more detail.
Well, think about it from Brian Kelly's standpoint in LSU. He's saying, hey, I have no problem giving an injury report on the status of a guy because it's not that big of a benefit for us to hide information like that going into a game. Joe Theismann joins us. Of course, you can always talk Redskins and Commanders with Theismann. And nowadays, Joe, I could say, hey, we could also talk a ton of Notre Dame, given the landscape of college football and the relevance of them being independent versus the landscape of the future that we foresee happening at the very top of the sport. Hope things are well, and never a shortage of football discussion with you.
No, I appreciate it, Jonathan, and hello to you, Chad, as well. I just, as far as Notre Dame goes, I'm excited for this year. Sam Hartman, our young quarterback, who's a transfer from Wake, I think, is something special. I mean, he had in horrible weather in the spring game, he looked really good. I think Marcus has done a terrific job with the defense. We were young a year ago. Of course, opening at Ohio State's never an easy task for anybody. And we had a quarterback that was inexperienced, but we've got all those elements now. And I think Notre Dame could be that team that's not in the top 5 that could surprise people.
Joe, with all this movement in college football, do you think Notre Dame is going to be able to preserve their independent status, or will they be eventually forced to join one conference or another?
Well, we are in the ACC. I think people don't realize that. I think we play 6 games in the ACC, and our other sports are in the ACC as well. So, in essence, we are sort of in a conference. But the way I look at this is, why would Notre Dame commit to anything right now? This looks like a shuffled deck. Every year, somebody's moving somewhere. Everybody's going someplace else. There's new configurations in the conferences. Once maybe some stability is created in college football, which has become an absolute mess with the portals and the NILs and everything else that has turned college football into semi-professional football. I think Notre Dame is in an excellent position to be able to evaluate where they want to go and what they want to do. Everybody sort of moves for the money to the SEC or the Big Ten or the Big 12, whatever it might be. Notre Dame basically has a network of its own with NBC. And if NBC didn't want it, I'm sure there are other suitors out there that'll pay a handsome price for Notre Dame football. So I think there's so many other elements to evaluate. But right now, I think the landscape is so muddled and muggy, messed up. I mean, why would you want to give up your independent status now?
Joe Theismann, our guest on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. How would you describe the landscape of Washington Commanders football with new ownership and the energy that we saw on Monday night, albeit a preseason game? You would have thought they won a playoff game based on the reaction.
Well, it's really funny. It's the energy in that town is off the charts right now. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on the football field and the players as opposed to in the past. We've had a lot of focus off the field. And that has changed under new leadership and new ownership. I thought that Sam Howell, our young quarterback, looked really, really solid and good. But, that's a preseason game. Now, you're going to look forward to 17, hopefully more games being able to play. He only has one real game under his belt, and that was against the Cowboys in the last game of the season last year. But the enthusiasm is incredible. I've been out to practice a few times. They put up a 2,500 seat. They have over 2,500 seats now at the practice facility. And most of the time, they're 2/3 to 3/4 full, sometimes completely full. The fans are excited. And from a player standpoint, it's exciting to run out on the practice field and feel the energy of the fans and have them screaming and yelling. And somebody makes a catch, somebody makes a play, and people are cheering and yelling. And it's sort of a mini stadium kind of a feel. And it's exciting for the players, and I think it's exciting for the city.
Joe, what have been your early returns and observations and have been seeing practice, but also the preseason there for Eric Bieniemy, the new play caller?
Well, I think, there was a little bit of hubbub, I guess, a week or so ago because Eric was basically, maybe some of the guys, he felt like he was a little rough on them. But, geez, you haven't won. What do you expect? I mean, you don't want to fall into whatever mode you were in before that created an ability not to be able to win. This team over the last 5 years has averaged less than 21 points a game. And they scored 29 against the Ravens. Now, preseason game, I understand that. But, I love to say this. Hope springs eternal in Washington for this football team. It's been a long time since anybody's had anything to cheer about. And so what we saw, I think, in the game on Monday night was a lot of pent-up frustration and cheers for something that they've seen, some great catches, some great throws. Defense was on point. Matter of fact, of all the preseason games I've watched probably in the last 3 or 4 years, that was the most entertaining game that resembled a regular season game, even though Lamar didn't play. But, I mean, it was, the final score was 29-28. So it was exciting. And I think that's what the people in Washington have to look forward to. And, the nice thing is they open with Arizona at home in their first game. So it's a game where Arizona still hasn't, really made a decision on who they want their quarterback to be. And it's getting closer to that witching hour. So all signs are pointed up. Let me just say that.
Joe, I can't remember an offseason where all of the discussion was about one player with one team, the way it was this past offseason, going into this season with Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Does that make you nervous if you're looking at the Jets with all of that attention, or do you think they're worthy of the hype now with that roster and Aaron Rodgers coming in?
I think they're worthy of the hype. Aaron's got a ton of pressure on him. I mean, he's been brought there to be the guy to lead him to the promised land. He's got to be the Peyton Manning, the Tom Brady, the Matthew Stafford. He has to be the next one in line. The Jets have gone all in. They've got, they're in a situation where their defense is pretty good. Their offense hasn't played near to where it was because you had basically a rookie quarterback in Zach at the position. Now you've got a multi MVP. You've got a world champion quarterback. You've got, I think, the best pure thrower of the football in the history of the game of football. He's the best pure thrower. The way he spins it, the quickness with which he gets it out of his hands, the velocity with which the ball travels, the ease with how he throws it. All those things to me make him the best. But I think there's a ton of pressure in New York because, the Jets fans are as frustrated as anybody when it comes to winning. And it's a tough town. And so he and Russell Wilson are the two quarterbacks that I think you'd have to say have the most pressure. But Aaron's used to it. It's a stroll in the park for him. He loves the attention. He loves being in New York City. He loves going to a Knicks game. He loves going to a Yankee game. He loves going to a Mets game. There's everything that he could possibly imagine he has a chance to do in the city of New York.
Joe Theismann, our guest across the OutKick Network. Joe, we could certainly, as a Super Bowl champion, we could tie in Notre Dame as well here. How to be a champion every day, your book, certainly a play on both of your experiences at the highest level.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a labor of love. Took a long time to finish it, like anything else. And I'm sure people out there can relate. You start a project, and all of a sudden you get distracted, and it sits there for a while. But I finally got it done in 2020. Brought it out during the pandemic, which wasn't necessarily the best time to do something, but I wanted to get it out. What it takes the world of sports, the world of business, and our own lives, and I create parallels in it. It's not a football book. It's really a book about looking at our own lives, looking at the things that we can accomplish, looking at some of the things that I did that I should have done better or could have done better, and maybe having people look at their lives and say, maybe there's something in this book that can point me in a direction where I want to go. I talk about goals. I talk about attitude. Talk about teamwork. Talk about motivation. Talk about opportunity. And some great contributors to that. General Colin Powell he wrote some stuff for me on leadership. Lots of different people that have contributed to the book as well, and lots of people who've contributed in my life. I mean, Coach Gibbs was one. Certainly Joe was a great influence in my life. Former coach of the Steelers, or I should say the Jets, oddly enough, we mentioned them again, is Joe Walton, who really taught me how to play the game of football and some of the lessons that he shared with me. So it's just a way for people to try and enjoy. If you still have a little bit of time on the beach, it might be fun to pick it up and leaf through it. It's not a big book, but it's a fun book for me to go back through every now and then to remind myself of the things that I need to do.
I look forward to checking that out. Hey, whenever you're hanging out with family, are you hanging with the Theismanns or the Theismanns?
Both.
When's the last time someone called you Joe Theismann?
When I go home to Jersey.
Okay.
When I get back to South River, all my buddies, and by the way, all of our names end in Y. Tommy, Bobby, Joey, Jimmy. I mean, that's part of growing up in New Jersey.
I love it.
And we're all Theismanns
I
back
love it.
there.
Joey Theismann has been our guest here on Hot Mic with Hut and Withrow.
Theismann is the stage name, but it's done him very well.
Oh, it's perfect. Joe, thank you so much for the
turned
time.
out okay.
We always, well, absolutely. We enjoy the perspective as always. We look forward to the next visit.
I do too. Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Joe.
There he is, Joe Theismann. Joey Theismann.
Joey Theismann. That's got to be crazy when it's just, it sounds better. Okay. And it's weird when people, he was always been, we've talked to him at Super Bowls in years past, Hutton. He's always just totally okay with it. Right?
Yeah.
Like when it started happening and then it became rhyming with Heisman, it worked out well at Notre Dame. It's just
media relations guy there did it.
Yeah, don't care. Let's roll with it. Doesn't matter.
I mean, it works.
Yeah. And he gets to go back home to Jersey and hang out with the Theismanns.
Chad, coming up, why the Angels will be remembered and why the Orioles will not. That's straight ahead on Hot Mic with Hut and Withrow across the OutKick Network.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy thinks that all voters should be able to pass a civics test, so I'm here on Broadway to see how we're doing. Can you name 3 cabinet positions?
Secretary of State.
Yep.
Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
And we'll go the Secretary of Education.
Correct. What is the capital of Tennessee?
That one. I have no idea. Tallahassee.
No,
that's
Florida.
That's Florida.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
No. Do you know the capital of Tennessee? What the hell? These people don't even like me.
All right, I'll give you a hint. You're standing in it. How many U.S. senators are there?
Way too many.
Well, they're way too old, I'll tell you that.
Not enough to do the job right, that's for sure.
If something bad happens to the president, who takes over?
The vice president.
Who is our vice president right now?
What does it start with? What's the first letter start with?
K.
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. When was the Constitution written?
1976.
1787. How many amendments does the Constitution have?
Sad.
32.
27. How many U.S. senators are there?
More than 50.
That's true, yes.
Because there's 50 states. There you go.
And how many senators are from each state?
2.
So how many is that?
100.
There you go. It's just basic math. You got it.
I have to really think.
What ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
East coast.
Atlantic, then.
There you go. If something bad happens to the president and the vice president, who takes over?
First one up from Congress.
And who is that?
Some old man.
Do you know what ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific? Atlantic, sorry. Wait.
Atlantic. What is the capital of Tennessee?
Nashville.
It's Nashville, guys! How many years do we elect a senator for?
4.
6. What about a congressman?
That's 4.
2.
It's just a trick question. So.
Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general in what war?
World War II. He commanded Operation Overlord and D-Day invasion.
Correct. Okay. When was the Constitution written? Before that.
1854.
Before that.
1818.
Before that.
1777.
After that.
1789.
Before that.
1784.
After that.
1785.
After that.
1786.
After that.
1777.
After that. You were so close.
1778.
No.
Kanye West. Kanye 2024. Big time. I wrote him in West Virginia. Put him on the ballot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? So proudly we hail.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network. Trey Wallace from OutKick.com will join us coming up in 20 minutes. Much to discuss, including the ACC, who reportedly is going to hold another vote to see about Stanford and Cal and maybe even SMU this go-around joining the conference.
They were one vote short last time, but SMU wasn't a part of it.
No.
The reports are the financial demands have changed, where these teams are maybe willing to take less or nothing for a couple of years.
Report what Stanford was, yeah.
And now, suddenly, okay, we'll get back to the negotiating table. That tells me, Hutton, they have the votes. Someone, NC State, North Carolina,
well, they're voting
Clemson, or
together.
Florida State.
NC State and North Carolina are voting together, so that might be it.
Maybe they switched, or maybe Clemson or Florida State has decided that they're now worthy of an ACC invite. It would give the conference 17 football-only schools in the conference, with Notre Dame being a partnership, and then they'd have 18 in every other sport if they added those three.
I also think Florida State would only flip their vote if SMU is going to pay them. Hey,
Yeah.
give us our fair share like the ACC needs to do. Then we'll vote yes. Not just a play for free. It's, pay us.
Yes.
Pay for play. Pay for survival and relevance. I have your name mentioned. Also coming up, Jack Swarbrick's comments on Stanford and Cal and the importance of them being in the ACC, which he's pointing to things off the field. That's
and
a deep dive coming up.
I will say, Jack Swarbrick and his claim that we'll talk about, it's exactly what fans of all of these schools will claim.
Right.
Right. So he's not alone.
He's not.
We're going to criticize him a little bit at where he's coming from, but he's not alone here. This is not some lone decision, lone criticism of what's going on from people. There's a lot of people who feel this way. We'll discuss.
Chad, Ohtani is on the mound today for the first time since, I believe, August 9th. He's pitching. It's been a while, and it's also been a while since we were discussing the Angels as a playoff team that was all in, trying to win, in the attempt that they're wanting to keep Ohtani, who discussed winning being of the utmost importance when it comes to where he's deciding to play ball in the future. Said all these things during the All-Star break. The Angels end up not shipping him at the trade deadline. And here are the Angels with Ohtani, but with nothing to show for it based on what they acquired in the purchase, not the sell.
Yeah, let's review. So all this takes place. No one really believes that Ohtani's going to re-sign with the Angels. And Angels ownership decides, you know what? We're going to roll the dice. We're going to take our chances. We are not going to be sellers. We're going to be buyers. We're going to trade for Lucas Giolito and others. We're going to go for it. We're a game and a half, 2 games out of the wild card right now. We've got 2 of the most transcendent baseball players of their generation on our roster, one of which might be the greatest baseball player of all time in Shohei Ohtani. And it will show that when his career is over with what he does as a pitcher and a hitter. Mike Trout's going to come back. Let's go for it all right now. And when they made that decision, I said, I honor the fact that they're at least trying, and they can say they gave it the old college try. But if this fails, the Angels are one of the most disappointing stories in the history of sport. Not just baseball, not just American sports, all of sport globally. This is one of the biggest failures you will ever see. To have Ohtani and Trout in their prime and to not go to the playoffs one time. The playoffs, as Jim Morris Sr. once said. Not a World Series, the playoffs. Can't get to the playoffs. At the trade deadline, they make this decision. They're going for it. Since the trade deadline, after last night's 4-3 loss to the Cincinnati Reds, the Angels are 5-14 and find themselves 10 games out of the final playoff spot, which I want to applaud the Angels for doing this. They went for it, and they lost. Like they've lost ever since they've had 2 of the greatest players of their generation. They will not be in the playoffs. Not going to happen this year. Ohtani is going to sign somewhere else that will win with him. Mike Trout, great player. No one watches Mike Trout. Why? Because he's an angel. And no one will continue to watch Mike Trout in the playoffs. Why? Because once again, they're not going to be in the playoffs. This is a failure of epic proportions. They went for it. That's not going to work out. And when you do that in sports, you open yourself to criticism, especially when they don't re-sign Ohtani, which is all but a fact at this point. That's going to happen. This is one of the most epic failures, not just trade deadline on and the 5-14 record, but Hutton, what they have failed to accomplish with having these two guys that's awful.
That is really the malpractice here. I don't blame them for going all in with Ohtani, though, at the deadline because
they were right there.
If you want to lose, you trade him. I mean, you could continue doing what you had been doing even with those two. They were 3 games, I believe, out of the final wild card spot at the deadline on August 1st. And then within a 3-week period, they're 10 games out.
Yeah, the eve of the trade deadline, they beat the Braves in Atlanta 4-1. They were 56-51. They were a game and a half out of the final wild card spot. They were right there. They then lost their next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games.
Oh.
Yeah. Starting August 1st, on the trade deadline day, starting August 1st, they went on a 7-game losing streak. It's as if they're trying to make their ownership look like failures. Right? They teased them.
How dare you back us at the deadline?
They teased them with a thrilling 10-inning win against Toronto, and then they go to Atlanta and win game 1 against the best team in baseball on the road of their series.
Yeah.
And the ownership decides we're keeping Ohtani. We're going for it. And they honor that going for it by losing 7 straight games from that point forward. And they're out of the playoff chase.
Chad, so the Angels will certainly be remembered, right, for going for it, but swinging and missing, having this collapse, but also not winning with Trout and Ohtani. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Orioles are not going to be remembered. Best team in ball, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter because John Angelos is the controlling owner of game day, day-to-day operations of the organization who cannot let his team simply win now. They have been the team that has sold the star power of Machado and others over recent years. And in return, they're getting star power in the minors that are finally delivering on a major level with a young roster. And already, Angelos is saying, hey, unless we raise prices considerably, day-to-day prices, we're not going to be able to keep these young players for the future. We're going to have to sell. We're not going to be able to buy in. We're not going to pay to extend on these contracts like you would see, the Atlanta Braves do, who many have said Atlanta and Baltimore for the World Series. Even Michael McHenry is saying this. That's his prediction. No, I'm not going that way because while the team sucked, it was on the Angelos family for shipping out the star power that allowed them to win, that allowed fans to buy in. And now that they're winning, Angelos can't keep his mouth shut until the offseason and allow the youth to take over and realize what they don't know, which is ownership sucks and our future isn't here, even when we're winning at a clip that we haven't seen, even when the O's have the attention again, even when it's not even about the roster, but about the announcer, for simply stating through a graphic facts that the team is better this year against the Tampa Bay Rays than what we have seen over the last 15 series against the Rays organization. You were a disaster against the Rays. And it was a positive stat that apparently didn't come across that way at the ownership's table. And now they're saying, oh, we had no idea exactly why Kevin Brown was suspended in terms of that reason, when for weeks we went through a process of either not knowing where he wasn't on the air or through a week straight of chants at the ballpark saying, free Kevin Brown. The guy's even tweeted out that he stands with the organization, and we still don't know the exact details of this quote-unquote suspension that they're trying to shove under the rug. What Angelos has done, Chad, is shove his team under the rug before we even get to postseason play. We asked this to Kurt Schilling yesterday when he joined us here on Hot Mic. I agree with you that the Orioles are legit. The problem is I don't think they're like the Braves. They're not going to win it because their owner won't shut the hell up and allow them to just go win instead of talking about the future. And just
get your guy with his finger on the bleeper. The Angelos comment the other day about we can't win unless we raise prices massively is complete.
Yeah, and it's a huge distraction. And that is why the owner will be the reason that they don't get it done, not the young stars.
The ownership is the reason they suck for 2 decades, and the ownership is going to be the reason they don't have a consistently winning team going forward if they don't spend.
Angelos, that was Kurt Schilling, host of the Kurt Schilling baseball show.
Well said by Kurt.
OutKick.com. Chad, Angelos has said that it regrets that the Kevin Brown situation became such a distraction. Brown didn't come to become a distraction. Angelos is the distraction for his own ball club that doesn't have any. There's no relevance to a distraction currently other than the distraction of they're the opponent for the opposing dugout worried about getting their asses kicked on a day-to-day basis. Instead, the current owner of the best team is looking down upon the young talent, cheap payroll talent currently, saying, you know what, well, I'm going to go ahead and let everyone know I'm not going to pay for the future, even though the future is about, at least I would hope so, winning. It's not. The losing organization because of loser ownership. And that's just the facts. Kevin Brown can't say it because he gets suspended, but that's also just stating the facts. John Angelos sucks.
He does. And when he says things like, I'm going to have to raise the ticket prices to a certain level to pay these guys, and, well, I don't know if these Orioles fans are going to pay those prices to come see this team, even if they're good. I don't think they're going to do that. We're not going to have, they're not going to want to see the ticket increase of what it's going to cost to try to keep those guys to break even, and people just don't know how difficult we have it. I hear bitching and moaning like that, and I hear a guy who thinks that the grass is greener in another town and that wants to move somewhere else. And this kind of ties back to the White Sox story earlier. While there's a lot of history with the White Sox in Chicago, and I am a traditionalist and I'm a fan of history, I also think we can't ask the question, does Chicago really need 2 Major League Baseball teams right now? But I look at the Orioles' history of Baltimore, I think that's very important to the city of Baltimore. And they don't have 2 baseball teams. And it would be a real blow to the city if the Orioles left. But if we continue to play sort of this game of civic chicken with every town, and what Angelos is saying, look real deep into what he's saying. I'm going to have to raise ticket prices to a level that our fans won't spend to go to games, even if this team is as good as they are right now. They're not going to spend it, and I can't make the bank account break even if we pay everyone what they're going to demand on the open market. That sounds like a guy who wants to move the team to some market where he thinks he can charge for tickets to that level. They can sell out of suites and everything else and get people excited. But if you constantly play this game of civic chicken with the city you're in, eventually run out of cities that are viable economically to move to. There's only one Nashville right now that every single team is rumored to be looking at as a possible landing spot. There's not a lot of other places out there that's going to be economically viable for what you're trying to do. So if Baltimore doesn't work for you, there's not a lot of other options that would work for the Orioles. And I think that game gets a little tired. But you're right about this, Hutton. Self-inflicted wounds by Angelos as an owner for an Orioles team that the story should be all about what they've accomplished this season.
So the Braves have, 81 wins?
I think as of last night,
Orioles
81.
have 77. Yeah. 77 wins. And that's just their win total is more than their entire payroll this year. They have a $70 million payroll. That's 28th out of the 30 clubs. That is due in large part to the service time of the young roster, right? But so that's already, for a cheap owner, this is perfect. Allow them to win and then sell even higher instead of pointing out the fact that, you know what, this is cheap payroll and it's going to continue to be because we're going to sell these players instead of paying them whenever it comes time to actually pony up and sign a paycheck. It's bizarre. It's also, he's pointing to the financials of baseball, not just the Orioles, but the TV deals, streaming packages, all these other things. But I mean, Angelos is also controlling Masson, which is Kevin Brown's employer, for 150 games.
Definitely pulling the strings there.
No
with
doubt.
The Kevin Brown suspension.
So, you've got all these popular Orioles of, the folklore. You got Jim Palmer and Cal Ripken and so many others. You can't dare state a fact anymore, and you can't dare be a lifer as a fan of one of these guys currently, because the owner is telling us as a fan of the Orioles, hey, don't buy the jersey because he's going to be playing in a different one soon because I'm not going to pay him. So you can watch him at Camden Yards.
Orioles, you nailed it, Hutton. 77 wins. Braves, 81. 2 highest payrolls in the AL East. The Boston Red Sox, 66 and 60, and the New York Yankees, 60 and 65. Second to last and last within the division. Orioles, Rays at the top of the division.
Man,
not bad for those payrolls for both those teams.
And even if Angelos feels this way, just shut up. Just wait. Allow everyone to have a good time for one season before realizing that, Rushman is just the next Machado.
You almost wish that he would just go away to a vacation house somewhere and just watch these games on TV at night and then not be allowed to say anything during the good times.
After
just
battling over
from
who's
afar.
controlling day-to-day operations with his brother, just sit back and be a fan of a cheap team that's winning at a very high rate.
It's a mess.
Yeah. Also, college football, some would say, is a mess. The ACC, maybe. Trey Wallace joins us next. We'll discuss.
Trey Turner, he was struggling. They were booing the hell out of him in Philly. On August 4th, his numbers were this: through 108 games. He's hitting 236 with a 289 on-base percentage and a 656 OPS with 10 homers and 35 RBIs through 108 games. The Phillies crowd gives him a standing ovation. And it's not a coincidence, guys. So you fans out there, there are players who you can trigger in a really good way. Since then, in the 14 games since then, 370, 414 on-base percentage, 117 OPS, 4 homers, 12 RBIs. Okay, not a coincidence. This game, every athlete, every athletic endeavor at this level is about confidence. It's all confidence. And there's a positive, and for anybody that's ever done sports psychology, there's a physical component to emotions. And by that, I mean your body releases different chemicals when you're happy, sad, depressed, pressured, motivated, all those things. And as an athlete, I can speak from personal experience. In October, I was a different human being. And I felt different. And my emotions were different. And my adrenaline was different. And when I pitched in front of big crowds when I pitched in Yankee Stadium, I was different. The crowds create those things, home and away. I remember in 1993 when we were playing the Braves in the playoffs. This was the time of the politically incorrect tomahawk chop that the Atlanta fans were doing. It's kind of when it started. And I remember they were doing that in Game 5. And Terry Mulholland told me before that game, he said, think about this, man. You have a chance to go out there and stop 45,000 people from talking and being emotional. And it led to the 2001 quote when I said, or 2004, when I said, I can't think of anything more enjoyable than making 55,000 people from New York shut up. And that's a sign of respect, by the way, New York fans. Always was. But we feed off this stuff, man. The good players do anyway. You know what? I'll say it, and you hear it here first, and I don't want to be first, but Aaron Boone's going to get fired, and that's going to suck because none of this is his fault. And every player in Yankee pinstripes and these guys know Aaron, and I promise you they care very deeply about this guy. He's the kind of guy that warrants that kind of emotion. Every one of them should feel like crap because it's their fault he's going to get fired, period. You couldn't ask for a better, more calming influence. I guarantee you there's no panic in his voice. But correct me if I'm wrong, but as a player, it always felt like Yankee fans wanted to see panic when they were losing. They didn't just want to panic. They wanted the organization to panic, right? You heard, I think earlier, what was it, last show, didn't we, John? We were talking about last show, trade Judge, trade Cole, blow it up. And it's like, no, number one. And you almost can't, number two. So if you can't fire the players, and firing anybody else would be meaningless to the field results, you got to fire the manager, the coaching staff. And unfortunately, I think that we're about to see that. And that sucks because it's not his fault.
Primary complaint coming up in 20 minutes. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow with you across the OutKick network, getting you to 6 o'clock Eastern through your workday. Trey Wallace is helping us do just that, covering all things college football for OutKick.com. Trey, good to see you, man.
Yeah, guys, always a pleasure to join, even if it's a little bit earlier in the week, because we've got a big week of college football ahead.
It's never too early to talk college football with you, Trey.
Hey.
That's the way I view it every single week. We could open a Monday show talking to you about college football, and it would be appropriate. It's never too early.
Trey,
I look crazy season, so I look forward to any day of the week.
Appreciate no doubt. Appreciate the flexibility today with Clay traveling. So we brought you up earlier because you've seen Swamp Kings. We have not, and I'm basing it solely off of your review. I mentioned you. I mentioned Chad for like a movie recommendation. I don't want to watch something that's called Untold if it is a flex for what is Florida Gators football, and instead of what the title is telling me about. Were you disappointed when you watched this? I know you were able to see it prior to the debut yesterday.
I watched the first 2 episodes, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And what caught my eye was, and I'm not gonna spoil it for folks. I'm trying not to spoil it for folks, but
sure.
What caught my eye was the behind the scenes footage that they got, because instantly I knew that, okay, that footage was shot by Florida. There wasn't a documentary crew back in 06 or 07 doing this. That was, Florida's inside videographers with the athletic department and the football team. I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, they got a hold of that footage. Like, I'm very now intrigued about how they got a hold of that. So that's what's in the first 2 episodes. I was like, okay, this is neat. This is cool. Like, I see where it's going with Tebow and Urban. Like, okay, it's going in that direction of where it turns into a promotional piece, but let's see what 3 and 4 bring. And after episode 3, I was kind of livid, to be honest with you. I was kind of mad. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I'm expecting something here. And it's also the way Netflix promoted this documentary. I think that when you look at the trailer that was put out there, and, they had the scene in the trailer with the police sirens and, talking about the past and whatnot, you're thinking, okay, they're going to at least spend a whole episode on this. Like, they're going to spend 45 minutes to an hour on this part, because there was so much crazy stuff that happened in Gainesville. And I didn't think this was, when Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow signed up for this, and Tim's getting paid to be a part of this, I thought to myself, this is not going to be some kind of hit piece, but let's see if they go down the direction, of at least uncovering some of the stuff that went down. And when I got done with it, all 4 episodes, and I had written down notes while I was watching it, because I went back and I watched it 3 times. I watched all 4 episodes 3 different times. I was trying to look to see if I missed something. They spoke about Aaron Hernandez for 30 seconds. 30 seconds for the entire documentary of Swamp Kings. And I thought to myself, that makes 0 sense. Why are you doing that? And I know, the director told me, I spoke with the director about this. You can go check out the article if you want at OutKick.com or find it on my social feed. The director told me, well, a lot of the players, they didn't feel comfortable talking about that. They didn't want to go down that road with Aaron Hernandez. Okay, that's fine. If the players don't want to, you can. Have a narrator talk about it, have somebody else. And I'm not just talking about Hernandez. I'm talking about all of the other incidents that I know that happened, that Florida beat reporters know that happened, that national columnists know that happened at Florida. That's where I was turned off, because really, to me, it turned into, and I really hate using the word puff piece. So I use promotional video, because I know what happened during Florida's time. I know about the trials and tribulations of Urban Meyer. I know about the losses. I know about Tim Tebow making his speech after the Ole Miss game that, I promise I'll never let this happen again, blah, blah, blah. Like, those were cool moments, but that's not anything new. Like, what are you doing? So when I watched the documentary, I was like, what is something that I didn't know and that I learned from this documentary? I did. The only thing that I learned from this documentary was that they were running, the mat drills, where you're going to see it in there. It's not giving anything away. It's in the trailer where they're literally wrestling with each other on these mats in the student rec center, trying to figure out who's tough enough to stick around the program. So I just feel like overall, and I'm not going to spoil the way they ended it, but the way they ended it agitated me. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you didn't even discuss the last season. So it's just, a lot of it was a letdown when I was hoping that it would be something that was informative to me, maybe something that I didn't know as a reporter in my early days covering Florida football. And it just wasn't. It was one of those things where I threw my hands up. And, when I interviewed the director, I point blank asked the director, Catherine English, what was the decision on not going after some of the stuff in the background that we know about, some of the details, not just Aaron Hernandez, but others as well. And her response to me was, well, we dug into every detail, but we wanted everything to center around just that time at Florida. So from 05 to 010. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but there were so many different things that happened during that time that you didn't hit on. And it got to a point where, I wrote, and I'm sorry to go long with here, but I wrote an article on Friday, and I wasn't trying to spoil anything for anybody. It was just a review of what I thought. I'm getting messages from the Netflix PR team like, well, I wish you would have told us you didn't like it. I was like, well, that's not my job to tell you if I didn't like it or not. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was like the point that y'all left stuff out and you decided not to go down that road for a reason. I'd love to know why. So, Jonathan, the behind the scenes stuff was very cool. It was stuff I've never seen before. Netflix licensed that footage from the University of Florida. So right then, what does that put in your head? Netflix is getting the footage. They miraculously found 650 tapes 7 months into this production. In my mind, that says, maybe that's a skeptic or a journalist in me, well, Florida had to have some kind of editorial control if they were giving up 650 tapes. So it was just interesting. I don't know, sorry for the long.
No, it should not be part of the Untold series. If it's going to be that's the biggest disappointment to me is everything, your review and everything I've heard about it. We're just coming off a Johnny Football documentary where the biggest complaint about it was it went too hard. And then it went too hard into the hard living of Johnny Manziel and had no solutions and left it with him, doing beer bongs with his buddies in Scottsdale, and that it took it too lightly. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's one thing, but it was entertaining to watch. And now we're going off that to, Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer being allowed to be the sole narrators of what was going on at Florida during a wildly successful but yet off-field tumultuous time in Gainesville for the Florida team. So that the whole thing is disappointing. Not to get back into it, Trey.
Well, Chad, even I loved hearing from Brandon Spikes. I loved hearing from Brandon Seiler, players that were involved in Ahmad Black, Dallas Baker, those players. I enjoyed hearing their take, but I could have heard their take on just an interview on Hot Mic on a Thursday afternoon if they wanted to come on. You know what I mean? Like you put so much into a documentary I was just surprised on the things that they either glossed over or decided not to hit on. And when I come back to it, all I can think of is they got these players to be involved. And even Director Catherine Ingo said, we wanted to build the trust of the players. We told them that we wouldn't hit on certain things, and we didn't. Well, you damn well didn't when we watched the documentary. So they lived up to the truth, and she didn't lie to the players. They did not make this any kind of hit piece, which it shouldn't have been. But also, they didn't dig enough into the details of what went on.
It's not a documentary if you don't. So what's going on with the ACC? Do they have the votes now, Trey, that they're going back to the table and discussing this while adding SMU as a piece to the Cal Stanford part that was already proposed?
Yeah, Chad, this is an interesting dynamic that's going on in the ACC right now. As I reported yesterday and wrote about, this was a ticking clock that was going on right now. You have lobbying that's being done by a former president or Condoleezza Rice or whatnot, but you have the lobbying going on from SMU, Stanford, and Cal. SMU is willing to give up, media revenue for the first 5 to 7 years of a contract with the ACC. Stanford, along those lines, they are willing to come in at a discounted rate. So what's going on right now is you have ACC presidents trying to figure out what to do with that additional money, who that's going to go to, aka Florida State, Clemson, people that have been complaining and threatening to leave the ACC. Maybe not Clemson, but Florida State, a lot of it. So now it's all about the look. Is this serious? Yes, it's serious. It's been serious. It's not like this died down last week when they didn't have the vote. They're one vote away. Like these presidents, they lobby for a living. You know what? And the fact that if you're one vote away from getting 2 new members or 3 new members into the conference, you continue pushing. And that's what they did. That's why I wrote about it yesterday. Like this never stopped. They continue to go after it. So looking at it right now, I think the timeline is from today, it's 4:32 Eastern time right now, probably all the way to this time next week, right before week 1 of the college football season. Stanford and Cal would love to have this done and wrapped up, and so would SMU. And so if they can figure out the financials to make it beneficial to Florida State and some of these other teams and make them happy and splitting up the revenue that those 3 teams would not take during the first number of years of the contract, I think you will see all 3 in the ACC starting in 2024. And the biggest outlier here, guys, out of this whole situation is Washington State and Oregon State are the ones sitting back, probably hoping that this deal with the ACC falls through, so then they would be able to either maybe go with Stanford and Cal if they join the Mountain West if it fell through, or even Stanford along the lines of them going independent, so maybe Oregon State would join up with the other 2. So, there's a waiting game going on between the 2 outliers, while Stanford and Cal are trying their hardest to get into the ACC and have some kind of financial stability, over the next 10 to 20 years. So this thing is not stopping. It's going to keep going. And you know what? I think they're going to lobby until they get that final yes vote that's needed.
Trey, always great. It's great to have college football back this weekend, and we get to see the Irish on the field against Navy in Dublin. I'll be watching that first and foremost. Is there another matchup that's of interest to you?
I mean, I'm obviously going to say Hawaii Vanderbilt just because of, Clark Lee and what I've seen him do. I think we all remember last year's Hawaii Vanderbilt game when they played it, what it looked like a high school stadium in week 0 in Hawaii. I think that's an interesting matchup. It's at night, 7:30. That Notre Dame Navy game is, Notre Dame Navy is going to be fun to watch because you just never know what Navy is going to do. I expect Sam Hartman to go out there and throw for, 350 yards against Navy, but these service academies always put up a fight, and you play this game overseas and, give it a nice time slot of, I think it's 2:00 in the afternoon. It sets up an interesting game. And let's see what Marcus Freeman has in year 2 of this system where he, Notre Dame's expected to be fighting, for a college football playoff spot. Can they do it? This is going to set the tone. And, obviously at night, if you've got the Pac-12 network at 8:00 at night, tune in and watch Caleb Williams, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. He's going to play San Jose State. It's not going to be a good game probably after the first quarter, but at least you get to look at what Lincoln Riley's offense is going to look like this year and how Caleb Williams is coming back, in 2023. So, but the key to that is you got to find the Pac-12 network. If you don't have the Pac-12 network, I would suggest maybe trying to find a stream online. I'm just going to throw that out there. So I am interested in the weekend, and I'm definitely interested in what happens on West End and definitely what happens in Dublin, Ireland.
Final 30 seconds. Easier to find the Pac-12 network or the Pac-12 commissioner right now?
Oh, goodness gracious. That Pac-12 commissioner is probably on some, I can't even say the word that I wanted to say. Yes, I would probably say the Pac-12 network because I have a lot of great friends in the industry that will send me links to be able to watch. So I'll go with that.
There you go. I'll pass those on to us, too.
Game, I think, available on Crackle. You can find it as well, if that's still around.
Crackle 2, Crackle Plus.
Crackle Plus, I think is how they pronounce it.
Trey, great stuff, man. We'll catch up soon.
Guys, have a great week. Appreciate you having me.
Trey Wallace, OutKick.com for the very latest as college football kicks off. Got some more thoughts on the ACC vote and look at it from the reflection of what Stanford and Cal are telling us based on what's reported to be their stance and why all of a sudden the ACC is going back to a vote. I'm curious what it says about how they view making a decision immediately versus just waiting to see what happens with Florida State and Clemson. Plus primary complaint.
I'm curious about your primary complaint.
Oh, I'm ready to go.
That's what I'm curious about.
That's next here on Hot Mic.
Davey Hudson of OutKick here. We are at SEC Media Days 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to go talk to some players, see what they have to say. What's the best purchase you've made from an NIL deal so far?
Tag watch right here.
Far.
Best purchase? I probably just give it back to my son for real. That's probably my best purchase every time.
Man, paid my truck off. Definitely.
A house. My wife and I bought a house, so that's been huge. Being able to save that money up and buy a house.
This chain here.
The best purchase? I'd probably say helping my mom out with school.
Ooh, the best purchase? Probably the shoes. The shoes I got on right now.
The best purchase I made, well, the best NIL deal I've had is free steaks from Marksbury Farms, so keep me fed and beefed up.
With it?
Ooh, purchase? Probably a new golf bag. Or recently I played TPC Sawgrass this past weekend, and that was from I used that money from a deal I made, so that's up there too.
Probably getting my sister through college, helping my family out a lot. That's probably my best purchase I've done.
Best purchase? Probably my my mom and dad anniversary gift.
The best purchase I've made? I got a yoga mat the other day, and that's helped me a lot. Just flexibility and everything like that, so probably that.
Best purchase? My smile. Best purchase? I would say my best purchase was having my school supply drive.
Landon, what is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Remember the Titans for sure. Sport movie, I say Love and Basketball. That's my favorite.
Got to be Remember the Titans for sure.
Remember the Titans. I mean, it's top movie ever.
Probably Longest Yard.
I'd probably say Like Mike with Bow Wow. Yeah.
My favorite sports movie? Remember the Titans.
Air Bud.
Perfect answer, actually.
I really don't know. I don't have one.
Movie? I haven't seen many, but does Sandlot count?
Favorite sports movie of all time? Probably Coach Carter.
Ooh, sports movie. Probably The Express.
Happy Gilmore.
The Little Giants.
Amari, what was your most favorite sports movie growing up?
Remember the Titans.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
I don't know the other one, but definitely not Barbie.
Oppenheimer, gotta be. I'm not against the Barbie movie though. I tried to recommend it. I was shut down pretty fast.
Oppenheimer. Come on now. You don't need to ask me that question. Oppenheimer looks good though.
What's Oppenheimer?
It's a movie about the atomic bomb. It's the big thing that comes out this Thursday.
Yeah, probably that.
Oppenheimer.
Wait. What was the other one?
Barbie or Oppenheimer?
The opposite of Barbie. The opposite of Barbie. Yeah, so I'm not.
We're going to see Oppenheimer and then follow with Barbie.
Solid choice.
I don't even know what Oppenheimer is. I don't want to see Barbie, though.
Oppenheimer, 100%.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Say a little bit louder.
Oppenheimer.
Oh, we're going to watch both of them. Maybe on the same night. We'll probably watch. I think you got to watch Barbie first, just so you're not, Oppenheimer might be a little too intense. You know what I'm saying? So you warm up with Barbie and then you go to the Oppenheimer.
The second one. Oppenheimer.
Sorry. Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
Barbie.
There's a surprising backup quarterback that was named today in the NFL. That's coming up in about 20 minutes. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Primary complaint just around the corner as well in a matter of minutes. Chad, hear me out on this. So aside from Stanford reportedly telling the ACC, and they've reportedly told this to they've informed the Pac-4 of this. Hey, we've told the ACC we want to be a part of the conference and we're not going to take any of the media rights money, right? Because that's the big issue for Florida State and Clemson. It's like, why would we continue to divvy this up if there's no added value for more money coming to us, right? Us meaning the entire conference, not just them.
We are special. You are not. We deserve more money, not less. We're not going to give our share to anyone else.
Yeah, we're not going to split it.
Unless they're going to make us more money.
Oregon is taking a cut based on what the revenue share would be for the Big Ten, but they're still getting paid. They're getting reports of like 50 or 60% is what was reported when they joined along with Washington. Doesn't this also say a couple of things? Number one, the media rights contract through ESPN, $37 million annually for ACC teams. I wonder if this is also under the idea that we're going to see a new structure and payout for the college football playoff whenever they reconvene at the commissioners' meetings this week and then again in September. Because right now the Autonomous Five, every conference in the Power Five gets $80 million guaranteed based on the college football playoff with 4 teams. That's moving up, and if you're going to distribute this and it stays the same, it's going to be a Power 4 that's distributed, so that would be $100 million. Instead of 80 times 5, you have the 100 times 4, and you get the same price. And then if you expand it to 16, there's more money involved there too, because more money would be coming in to entice that jump. I think it's that, but it's also, isn't it Stanford also saying we're not going to put up a fight here because, number one, we need a landing spot now, but also the landing spot in the ACC is pretty good, and we wouldn't just repeat what we just went through. Doesn't it also say the ACC is stable? With Stanford and Cal willing to do it? Cal's like paired up with Stanford here. Notre Dame's going to bat.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, okay, that's Stanford realizing that Notre Dame is sticking there. They're staying independent, and they've already referenced us, and we can pair with them.
Yeah, stable compared to what? Stable compared to joining the Mountain West? Yes.
No, compared to just going independent until you're not.
Yeah, look,
not going
again,
Mountain West, just
it's stable,
not doing anything.
It's stable compared to Independence, Mountain West, trying to keep the remaining 4 Pac-12 teams and do something different and form a new Pac-12. Joining the ACC at a reduced rate or no rate, and for the short term, you can't do it forever, obviously, but for the short term, I think is more stable than those situations. It's the best of a bad option. I just don't think this is a great option for Stanford or Cal either, but it's the best of a bad option. No one's going to claim that Stanford or Cal won anything by having everyone bolt for better conferences, them left out hanging in the wind, and then all of a sudden they have to go freebie to the ACC for a year or two.
But Cal's athletic department is in debt, and the reports are, their $25 million at the floor wasn't good enough for any of these teams with Apple, but yet they're not going to take anything for the ACC. Again, what is Swarbrick saying and doing?
Also,
and the lobbyists with Condoleezza Rice with Stanford, of course, what we're seeing from Laura Bush on behalf of SMU.
Well, the ACC also, their whole deal with ESPN kind of strikes me as the Lakers deal with Magic Johnson when they got him for 25 years for $25 million. And that was Dr. Jerry Buss seeing the future and saying, this is going to be peanuts in the future.
Yeah.
This is an insane amount of money right now. But 20 years from now, 15 years from now, these contracts are going to go through the roof. And this is actually a bargain, what I'm doing with Magic Johnson. But it looked crazy. I think the length of that contract with ESPN is kind of the same thing. And the whole grant of rights situation for the ACC, man, this is long-term stability. This is great. We got to sign this. We've secured our future. And then as years go on, Florida State's all of a sudden not happy. Clemson's not happy. We're pulling our weight over here. The rest of you aren't. You've got the Big Four now, which I don't know that NC State belongs in that, but whatever. They're attached to North Carolina. You know, UNC, NC State, Florida State, Clemson, they vote together. You've got this voting block of teams that voted out Cal and Stanford. Now they're coming back to the table because they might get them for free. Again, you know, stable, yes, compared to other options that are bad, but compared to Big 12, SEC, Big 10, I mean, it is SEC, Big 10, then Big 12, a jump down, then ACC, and then everything else is really tenuous. All the Group of Five conferences are tenuous. The ones that were left behind, tenuous. I would argue Notre Dame and their situation may not always be as strong as it is right now being independent. They may have to choose a side at some point in all this as well.
But Notre Dame has chosen the side currently of Stanford. And Cal's a part of it. But that, and right now, if you're not a part of anything, you're a part of nothing. I get it. But you want someone to say your name. You know, you need to be Heisenberg, right? And the ACC isn't saying Stanford as much as Notre Dame has been saying it publicly. And we'll get into Swarbrick's comments coming up a bit later in the show. Chad, right now, it's time to air our top grievance of the week with primary complaint. Guys, my primary complaints this week, I want the option to be able to find any Bluetooth device that I can't find when I'm searching for it, namely like earbuds, off-brand headphones that I love, Raycon. I want that more than I want the Apple product. I want an app. Maybe it exists. I haven't been able to find it. I want an app that will hook up to Bluetooth, no different than my iPhone, walking into any Bluetooth device that I want to play music on, regardless if it's Apple or not, and I can connect to it and play music. I want an app. I want someone to send me this that allows me to hook up any device I want to through Bluetooth that will do something to allow me on a map to tell me where that thing is. I hate the fact that I can find my iPhone, but I can't necessarily find every single Apple product, and I know I can't find an off-brand product through Find My iPhone. That's my primary complaint.
Did you say Raycon is the name of the...
Yeah. You want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see these. I remember Raycom, the network.
Yeah.
Remember they carried the Copper
We're not
Bowl?
finding that.
I don't know why this always strikes me, but during the holiday season, they carried the Copper Bowl from Tucson, Arizona on Raycom.
So tiny.
Did you get that at Radio Shack?
Raycon.
I did not. I don't even remember where I got these, but I mean, I love these things. And yeah, if you lose one of these, there's no, you're not finding this even in the crevice of your couch.
Those are the cleanest ear devices I've ever seen in my life, as Hutton breaks that out. Hutton looks like he could perform surgery on one of us with those things. It's so sterile and clean. I mean, every ear device I have, like I wear it once, and it's got like matter in it. And it's dusty, and it's got earwax after a while. Hutton's looks like you'd perform surgery with it. I'll tell you one place that I won't be performing surgery anytime soon, and that is at a local Chipotle. And here's why. The people there are very angry. And I don't know what I did to them by just simply stepping into their restaurant, saying hello, and trying to order what I want in my chicken or pork bowl or whatever it is I'm getting at that time. But the people at Chipotle are getting angrier and angrier every single time. I enjoy my food less when you serve me the food with such an attitude and like you're so pissed off to be serving anyone in line. I mean, this takes like Lunch Lady Land, the cafeteria, the Sloppy Joes, the next level.
You're looking for a hair.
When you're at a place like Chipotle, well, it's not even that. It's just the manner in which they sling food into the bowl. And I'm only complaining about this because it's happened the last 3 times I've been there.
You're having a duck?
White or brown? Brown. And I mean, they are taking it's like a sport to them to sling the rice as hard and angry as possible, and it goes over the other food items there. I would like the corn salsa and the mild salsa. And they are picking this thing up, and they are splattering it down on the bowl. It's flying everywhere. They're giving me about half the meat they once gave me. You got to order double meat now to get the amount of meat that you want. And then when you go for guacamole, because you're paying extra for it, let's just take half the whole container of guacamole and drown my bowl in the guacamole just to really go ahead and put the cherry on top of this angry sundae that I'm being served at Chipotle every time. Just chill out. Like, I don't even need you to be that fast at Chipotle. Just calm down with the level of animosity you have with picking up the big spoon and putting food into a bowl. Just calm down. I get it that you may hate that shift or you don't like working there. What? Just let's all play pretend for a second. Let's you pretend that you're happy to be there and just calmly put the food in. Putting it in angry isn't going to speed up the process or get you closer to closing time anymore. And I'll pretend that the food is really good, that it's gourmet level. We can both play pretend together. That is my primary complaint.
As a burrito bar enthusiast, Chad, the play that you need to make is whenever you order the meat, you don't say the double meat first. You just say like, hey, I want this. And then you go back and you act like, oh, you know what, I forgot. I actually want to make it double meat and then add the other meat outside. Like in this case, it could have been chicken at first. And it's like, you know what, I want double meat with steak as well. And then usually you can get a little bit more there. It's a trick of the trade. So
a psychology play by you. Yeah. If you just say double first, they're going to give you like 1 1/4 serving.
They'll be very they won't be very fruitful with it. We'll put it that way. But guys, as it relates to my primary complaint, it has to deal with whenever there is road construction that leads to a detour. If you're going to shut down a road for 3 months, you better do something to the road when you open it back up. There's a route I take whenever I go to the gym every night. And for the past 3 months, that's been shut down, had to go to a detour. And I was thinking, wow, I knew this road, pretty curvy. The asphalt had a lot of potholes in it, so awesome. They're going to be fixing this up. And so then this past week, whenever I got back home, I actually am to Nashville. I'm making this trip. And I'm like, oh, wow, the signs are all down. This road is open again. I was excited to drive it, seeing like, what have they done? They didn't do anything. I think this country club just shut down the road so they could do something else on the side, just limiting everybody else from using this road. And the road, if anything, they made it worse. And I don't understand why you can shut down the road this long and not improve it one bit. And that is my primary complaint.
You got a construction delay without the benefit of the construction being complete.
Yeah, there's no point to it making my ride more enjoyable moving forward.
That's rough. Whenever there is anything going on bad on the road, like a pothole or something out there, construction, or there's a nail left behind, at a construction, I find it every time without fail. And I'm usually going like the fastest over it that, I could possibly do it. And there's no way to avoid it. That's how my car ended up in the shop recently.
With as much construction around us, I'm surprised that we all don't have flat tires more often.
When you go to the tire place too, I always talk to them, is this a common problem? And they'll always give you, especially if you go to a similar place in a certain neighborhood, they'll say, yep, because of this, and this construction project. Yeah. They can point to the construction projects causing the nails in the tires to get tires replaced.
And this, I don't believe them half the time. Sorry, this cannot be plugged. You'll need a new tire. It's in your sidewall. No, I'm looking at it. It's not. No, it's punctured the sidewall. You're going to need a new tire. We can't just plug this for $30.
The diameter of which you could actually plug the tire is about half a centimeter wide to people that work at the tire place. Yeah. If you hit it right in the right spot, they might plug that tire for you. The rest of the tire, the entire body of the tire right here, as you see, Mr. Hutton, there's no way we could just plug this for $30 or for free. We're going to have to put a whole new tire on it because of where this is right now and the proximity to the wheel well and everything else. This is what's going to get you. It's complete BS.
David, the other thing, too, is the detour signs are not – they're not up ahead soon enough. Like, it's right on top of where you're supposed to turn.
Now, that was a great one for this one. And this was there was probably about 6 or 7 turns that were added because of the detour.
Yeah, it's not good. Technology. Let's use it better. The signs.
We're not at all. Let's all be Amish.
More of them. Oh, yeah, we're all Amish
the
there.
Amish had it right.
One man will be blamed in Indy. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he did
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here on this Wednesday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Plenty of football discussion headed your way as we get you to the evening through your workday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Glad you're with us either streaming live on YouTube, live and on demand there through the OutKick channel, or listening live, perhaps on your drive home right now to this great radio partner. Chad Show flying by. If you missed good conversations with Christian Okoye, Joe Theismann, and Trey Wallace, all of those available through podcasts wherever you download your audio.
In day 2 as a truck owner, going well so far. I've started to develop the ability to back into every spot that I'm in. I'm just trying to test myself out.
You feel like you're driving a boat?
I'm seeing what looks like a really tight squeeze, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to test myself, and I'm going to try to get into that spot right now and see how close I am, how tight I can cut it.
You know what you haven't tried yet?
What's
a parking garage. You're screwed.
I don't want to do that. Not looking for it. I was thinking about like meeting. We're talking about a pre-show planning football season lunch with us and Davey. And I'm already thinking in my mind about places without parking garages.
Can you pick me up? I'll just ride in the back of the I'm going to be in the
you
could
be underneath it. You would die, by the way, with the heat outside. I really think by the time we got to our destination, you would be dead underneath the covering of the truck bed. But yeah, I'm starting to get more and more comfortable. Backing into the spots, driving around, just hopping out of the truck. Last night, coaching softball, parked the truck in center field, like where I could see it the entire time. I just pulled right up into it and parked it facing there. Didn't turn the lights off where I got there, not to blind the
You have it in your
kids
pocket.
in
You
front
have the
of me.
keys in your pocket. You're just hitting the alarm every now and then.
Yeah, it was just weird when I'd look up and I'm like, whose truck is that? Oh, that's my truck. Wow, okay. Look at that truck out there. Incredible.
Hey, parents, check out. I'm going to see if my truck will start here in the bottom half of the final inning here.
Well, it's crazy because where I live, I feel like 75% of the males where I live have a truck.
Yeah.
So everyone in the park has a truck. I was one of 80 Ford F-150s parked at the field last night. I had
dealership.
I had to hit the horn to see which one was mine as I walked out there. I didn't even realize. I said, what color truck did I buy? I don't even remember. There's so many of them out there. That's why it fools me when I start walking to my vehicle. Just how crazy it is. The kids loved riding in the truck. They wanted to ride the game in the truck.
Absolutely.
So anyway, day 2 is going well. Just wanted to give you an update.
Chad, we used to have well, we still do. It's more of a quiet rivalry currently between Greg Sankey and a big team. It was Kevin Warren, now Tony Petitti. But we still have, a conference-on-conference rivalry brewing where Danny White, the athletic director at the University of Tennessee, has had enough of any speculation or rumor / innuendo that Tony Elliott, now the head coach at Virginia, was offered.
Who Tennessee plays in Nashville next Saturday.
A week from Saturday, was offered the job prior to Josh Heupel getting the gig, because he was Elliott was quoted and was asked about Tennessee, and he's like, I consider Tennessee one of the blue bloods of college football and the program, and it goes in to say one of the top-tier programs in the country, and mentioned it just wasn't the right time, even though I received the offer for him, because he was the OC at Clemson. Well, Danny White, the AD, responds to Zach Reagan at A to Z Sports, who had this, and says, interesting, I don't remember offering. Ignored this the first time, can't do it again. An interview doesn't constitute an offer. Interviewed several candidates, offered one. What do you think of Danny White having enough of Tony Elliott? To me, you ignore it if you never offered the guy. You can ignore it if you did and he turned you down and now he's the head coach at Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, I buy Danny White's side of this story simply because you wouldn't go out on a limb and say that if there was any possible proof or any notion that you offered him the job, right, and he got it. This kind of gets into the offer versus official offer.
Yeah, there's only one formal offer.
Only one formal offer.
Which is weird that
made.
the ACC took a vote that was voted down, and now a week later they're doing it again, right?
Look,
you normally only have the formal vote one time.
I like the honesty of his emotion and opinion on this from Danny White, and he's certainly someone who doesn't hold back. And he has gotten a lot of good work done in Knoxville in his short time there as Tennessee's athletic director. No doubt about that. I think it's an interesting play considering they play Virginia. You know, this isn't coming off a beatdown of Virginia. They have not played them yet. Yes, Tennessee is a 28-point favorite in that game.
It's
but
amazing.
Are you offering bulletin board material for Virginia and Tony Elliott going to this game, which is weird.
We never offered the Virginia coach.
To think about from an AD. The full quote, and this is where, this is from Tony Elliott that he's responding to, not just the first part of it.
What if Elliott shows up with an email?
Oh, that'd be amazing. What if he beats Tennessee and starts holding up an email with the formal offer on it to all the fans? He says, when I evaluated it, there were a lot of positive things about it. It just wasn't the right time for me. So when it came down to it, I prayed about it and said, I want the Lord to lead me in the right direction, that you'd have me to go. So it was close. But at the end of the day, when I looked at the totality of everything, it just wasn't the right time and the right fit for me. I'm happy for Josh Heupel, excited for him and what he's doing there. And then, so Danny White reads that quote and then just comes off the top rope, says, I've heard it once. I was silent. I'm not going to listen to it again. There was only one offer. Did not offer this guy who we were about to play with Josh Heupel's team, the guy that I hired at Tennessee.
And
I love it.
Great decision it was.
It's worked out well so far.
28-point difference.
But what a moment that would be, Hutton, if that
Vegas
played out, if Virginia pulled the upset and Tony Elliott's got the formal offer in his hand and he's walking it around to the Tennessee section and showing them the offer that he got. It'd be similar to me winning the Sigma Phi Epsilon Balanced Man Award and then having my fraternity, when I sign with another one, hold up the trophy to them in a fight.
Or just you hold up 10 $100 bills.
Bring out the plaque, yeah.
Which was the
I think I won a $1,000 scholarship.
Chad, for those that are new to the show, Chad won a $1,000 balanced man scholarship from a fraternity during Rush, and then
it was pay for play, and I didn't play.
Pledged a different fraternity after winning.
It was total pay for play. I was recruited by this fraternity. I was given a $1,000 scholarship, and I ended up joining a different fraternity.
I love it. I love that.
It was straight up pay for play. I think they wanted me on their frat flag football team.
Well, it's like
that they valued very much.
It's like the reports that were out when the NCAA through the investigation with Tennessee. You had Jeremy Pruitt, who I forget the tight end's name at Georgia, who's now in the league. They paid him, and then he ended up going to Georgia. And the questions
Darnell Washington.
Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
The question's like, so what? I wonder what Georgia paid him.
Yeah.
So I wonder what Sigma Nu paid you.
They didn't pay me anything. Cheap beer and cheaper women. Kidding. They didn't give me any of that. But no, it was
not even a pickup truck.
Yeah, it was like I don't know. I mean, in hindsight, did I make the right decision? I mean, if they were willing to give me $1,000 not being in the fraternity, what could I have received from them at another time?
They in studio they just pulled up
an old photo of me at our old radio station
at the Zone here. How many headshots have we taken at OutKick? And they go to the depths of this photo. Is this the Better Man photo?
I don't know. I don't know that we did a photo shoot for the Balanced Man Award.
No.
The Better Man would be better. My Pearl Jam Award, Better Man. I won. I was the better. It was the balanced. I was the Balanced Man of the Year. The Sigma Phi Epsilon Balanced Man Award is what I won.
That should be on your lower third here on the show. Chad,
that's not a bad photo though.
That's very well. I forget what.
Very
what
forced.
That was for.
By the way, if you flash that photo one more time, because I want everyone to look closely at the phone next to me. It's the same one, and I bet that photo is from 2014.
That looks
15.
like a brand new phone too.
2015.
Yeah,
I guarantee it's the same phone that I have right here, right now, every day with me. That somehow I have completely tricked the Apple Corporation to not slow down my phone with all the updates. Never had an issue with that.
You are the one.
I'm the exception.
You're the one.
I should get my own show on Apple TV Plus as the one guy who beat the system. It's a real rags to riches story. David versus Goliath.
It's a relic.
Me versus Tim Cook. And
it's a relic.
I won because this old phone has not slowed. It's listening to me right now. And the moment we leave this show in less than an hour, I will be slow now.
Chad, that photo, your phone, taken around the same time that Corey Davis would have joined the Tennessee Titans as a draft pick out of Western Michigan.
Around 2016?
Yeah, roughly. He is, maybe it's 2017. Nonetheless, he's retiring. He's stepping away from the game. He's currently, of course, with the Jets after a great season in 2020, where he's the number 2 wideout to A.J. Brown here in a contract year. He ends up with the New York Jets. Now, it had been speculated that the Jets could potentially cut him based on salary and other things that are currently on the books. turns out he's just deciding to retire. The quote from Davis through a statement that he put out on social: "For some time now, I've been contemplating stepping away from the sport of football. The decision has not been easy. Although I am a deep person, I am a man of few words. I've been searching my heart for what to do, and I feel stepping away from the game is the best path for me at this time. I have more blessings than I could have ever imagined. I have an amazing family, beautiful wife, and 2 healthy children that I look forward to spending more time with. I am truly grateful for all of the opportunities I've had. I'll continue to have on my journey. Thank you to my family and friends and the Jets organization for supporting me through this process." That from Corey Davis. He's right. He's a man of few words. Very good dude all around. And injuries have plagued him. But by and large, I mean, he was set up to put up some other big numbers with Aaron Rodgers. Chad, you had mentioned he's in the recent Hard Knocks episode.
He's got a quick cameo where
Very
he's
brief.
reacting to something, or I've noticed having
You're right.
covered Corey, where he says something. It was episode 2, not the most
yeah.
I did not watch last night's, but episode 2, he's seen.
Yeah, so he's stepping away. Instead of being on the potentially on the waiver wire on August 29th, which is next Tuesday is the deadline for teams to get down to 53, he's stepping away from the game and announcing his retirement. Chad, Chris Collinsworth on Dan Patrick's show saying, hey.
Something we've long said.
If NBC had its way for Sunday Night Football, Dallas would be on every single week based on the ratings. He's not lying there. I mean, every network wants the Cowboys. The Cowboys equal ratings. Doesn't really matter how the season's going. You're not going to see a Cowboys game 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, flexed out if a network has the option because of the millions, like The Rock would say, the millions of Cowboys fans or Cowboys haters that tune in to watch them play in prime time under the lights.
Yeah, they're the Yankees of the NFL, right? I mean, everybody's got an opinion on them.
Most valuable sports
bad.
franchise here.
I do wonder, because I thought about the hypothetical that Collinsworth is talking about, and he's right about what network executives would want because of the ratings that the Cowboys get. What if that actually was a reality and they were on every Sunday Night Football game? Would there ever be a law of diminishing returns in one time slot on one network where people would start to tune them out if they were always on there? But Hutton, this is also, it's funny, their ratings do so well. You got to keep in mind that Thanksgiving ratings are high for all those games. That's a huge day for ratings. They're always in that Thanksgiving game, so that's always going to be
NBC
one of them.
has one.
Yes.
That could count
That's
there.
always going to be one of them. But it's funny to hear people complain about the Cowboys are always in the primetime slot in one of those games, yet they watch.
No, and the ratings dictate that. Here's why it doesn't make sense, though. It makes sense from, NBC would love it. Every network would love it. But the law of diminishing returns would happen on the network TV contracts. They've raised it to 7. You can have 7 primetime games per year for an individual franchise. And they spread out the wealth across all the different networks and platforms. So Dallas is used as a lure for all the networks to pay a premium price. Even Amazon is guaranteed a Thursday night game with the Dallas Cowboys. It's not just solely on Sunday Night Football. And that's why the net revenue share over this new 11-year TV contract is estimated to be $110 billion, which is going to be spread out equally for the $10 billion per season, which ends up being $375 million per franchise, whether you're featured on Sunday Night Football or not. But what you do know is that every network is willing to pay the premium price because they're going to get the premium product. That's the reason why there's not one network for one team, because no one's going to pony up and pay to equal the same amount of money that all the networks are doing for the premium brands. It's not hard to figure out who those are, and they've even raised it to 7, and it used to be 5. Now it's 7 primetime slots under the lights per season for any individual team, and now you can play 2 Thursday night games. So I think the money goes up because they spread the wealth, not because Sunday Night Football just doesn't go all in like any network would to have Dallas in the primetime slot on Sunday night.
It's a great point. And even with them not having the Cowboys, obviously, in every game because of the rules, like Collinsworth said they would like to have, it's still the highest watched television show of the year. every year, regularly, is Sunday Night Football on NBC.
And by doing with the $110 billion, think about the salary cap, what it's going to do. Players still don't get the vast majority of the money that's brought in on game day, from the stadium concession. They don't get any of that parking, but they get 49.5% of the $110 billion over 11 years.
Yep.
And it used to be you're only on a short week once. Now, 2 weeks notice, you could be on a short week twice. So maybe it does pay to be, a scrub of the league where potentially you're not on a short week at all. But you get the long weekend. I guess there's benefits to that too.
It can pay to be a scrub. That's what we've learned. Just ask us.
Chad, once thought a scrub, third scrub on a roster, no more, at least for the time being. Reports are Sam Darnold is the backup to the 49ers quarterback situation. Brock Purdy, the starter. Yes, Sam Darnold is the backup for the regular season, and Trey Lance is in at 3. Let's react to that when we come back, because the speculation normally says Darnold won that job. Like, what's the organization thinking? Except this is Shanahan. And number 3 on the depth chart is the guy he vouched for to trade up and draft. And does it mean that another team could potentially trade for Lance? That's coming up. Hot Mic with Hunter Withrow across the OutKick Network.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy thinks that all voters should be able to pass a civics test, so I'm here on Broadway to see how we're doing. Can you name 3 cabinet positions?
Secretary of State.
Yep.
Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
And we'll go the Secretary of Education.
Correct. What is the capital of Tennessee?
That one. I have no idea. Tallahassee.
No, that's Florida. That's Florida.
Tennessee.
Yeah. No. Do you know the capital of Tennessee?
What the hell? These people don't even like me.
All right, I'll give you a hint. You're standing in it. How many U.S. senators are there?
Way too many.
Well, they're way too old, I'll tell you that.
Not enough to do the job right, that's for sure.
If something bad happens to the president, who takes over?
The vice president.
Who is our vice president right now?
What does it start with? What's the first letter start with?
K.
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. When was the Constitution written?
1976.
1787. How many amendments does the Constitution have?
32.
27. How many U.S. senators are there?
More than 50.
That's true, yes.
Because there's 50 states. There you go.
And how many senators are from each state?
2.
So how many is that?
100.
There you go. It's just basic math. You got it.
I have to really think.
What ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
East Coast.
Atlantic, then.
There you go. If something bad happens to the president and the vice president, who takes over?
First one up from Congress.
And who is that?
Some old man.
Do you know what ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific? Atlantic, sorry. Wait.
Atlantic. What is the capital of Tennessee? Nashville. It's Nashville, guys! How many years do we elect a senator for?
4.
6. What about a congressman?
That's 4.
2.
It's just a trick question, so.
Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general in what war?
World War II. He commanded Operation Overlord and D-Day invasion.
Correct. Okay. When was the Constitution written? Before that.
1854.
Before that.
1818.
Before that.
1777.
After that.
1789.
Before that?
1784.
After that?
1785.
After that?
1786.
After that?
1777.
After that? You were so close.
1778.
No.
Kanye West, Kanye 2024, big time. I wrote him in West Virginia, put him on the ballot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? So proudly we hail, so.
Coming up, Davey Hudson's got audio for us of an epic presser from a defense attorney. Looking forward to that. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
I'm interested also in the subject of what the defense attorney is defending, because it's a story we've talked about in the past. So this will be good.
Chad, a story out of San Francisco.
San Francisco.
So Brock Purdy,
Rice-A-Roni.
He's the starter, right? Sam Darnold is the backup. That was legit. That whole Darnold looking better than Trey Lance debate. It was like, okay, is this like Richardson and Minshew? Turns out no. The 49ers are naming Sam Darnold the backup to Trey Lance, or to Brock Purdy. Trey Lance is currently third string on a roster that, I mean, have they learned their lesson of only carrying two quarterbacks from a year? I mean, they are the reason for the new emergency quarterback rule, because we saw that in the playoffs. But also, this brings up the question, is Trey Lance about to get traded? And knowing that he's third string, what's the value in return for Trey Lance? And there's a handful of, I mean, it's not like there are 32 solid starting quarterbacks. But Shanahan, who was waving the flag during the draft and said, hey, you know, off the 2020 season where Trey Lance played one game, hey, the value of what we're trading up to go get, this is our future. And it turns out he may also be waving the white flag here, saying Lance is not the future. Brock Purdy is, and Darnold on a one-year contract, he's the backup.
I think what they're saying also in doing this is that Trey Lance is just not any good. And that's crazy when you think about what they gave up to trade up and get him in the draft and how quickly this has devolved. From where he's the starter to start last season, he gets hurt, and Brock Purdy plays well, and now he's back from injury, but he must just be bad. That Sam Darnold is the backup now. And I don't know what the market would be for him, given that, you know, you've got pretty good offensive coaching staff in San Francisco.
I know.
That's saying what about Trey Lance? That they don't think he's good at all. That they're willing to give up on a guy who was drafted where he was this early in his career. And they're giving up on him. If he's legitimately a third-string quarterback, they have given up on Trey Lance.
Rappaport is saying they're exploring options with him. The team that comes to mind immediately for me is Arizona. I realize they're in the same division, but if he's your third-string quarterback, what difference does it make? And keep in mind, Kyler Murray's coming off of the ACL. He's not going to be ready for a while. I mean, who they're considering at starter would be a fourth or fifth-string option in San Francisco. So no matter what you view Trey Lance as in terms of his ability right now at quarterback, it's an upgrade in Arizona until you get Murray back, and then you actually see him on the field. Lance, I'm saying. I don't know anyone else that comes to mind immediately based on quarterback situation, but, I mean, maybe a team wants to upgrade as a backup.
I don't know why you care if it's a division opponent if you don't think the guy's very good.
Right.
I've always fought against that. I get it if it's if someone's disgruntled, but you know they're a good player and they want out. I understand why the Colts won't trade Jonathan Taylor to the Jags, as an example. You don't want to go inter-division that way, because intra-division, I should say, because you know the guy's good. He just doesn't want to be there anymore. There's something happened with a contract or whatever. But if you've given up on a guy and you've got him third string behind Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy, then trade him to wherever you're going to get the best payback for it. And don't worry about the division.
I would,
because you're already saying the guy's not good. So he's not good. Then why do you care if he plays in the division?
Low exchange rate anyway. Davey, what else?
Well, I was going to say, with him not being at practice today, do you expect to see him in a 49ers jersey again?
No.
And
no, that's them all but saying they're trading him or trying to.
And
taking him off the field.
We could have this conversation at another date, but this potentially goes down as the worst trade in NFL history if you look at the fact that the 49ers got Trey Lance, and the Dolphins were able to turn that into Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Bradley Chubb.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yes. But see, the other teams that come to mind here, Atlanta with Ritter, the difference there is they have Ritter, but they also have Taylor Heineke now. And Heineke, we've actually seen have results, and is that he's viewed better than Sam Darnold, you know?
Yeah.
Carolina has Bryce Young, who some believe won't make it through the season, but they have Andy Dalton backing him up. Like, there are other options that teams already have. Meanwhile, Trey Lance is being perceived here, and we're seeing it happen right now in confirmation from the 49ers, who didn't trade him during the draft, that he's not even good enough to be the backup to Sam Darnold, was on the scrap heap from Carolina. I'm interested to see if there's more to it, or if it's just a demand by Trey Lance saying, screw this, before the even final preseason game rolls around, I'm out. Chad,
who's the Texans' backup? Behind Stroud. I'm trying to look it up right now.
No, it's
Davis Mills?
Davis Mills is there, and they also have a third who is a former quarterback of theirs, I believe, that's back in Houston. But Davis Mills is the backup.
Well, you got me thinking about that.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum, yeah. But
There's
you got me
more or
thinking
less
about
coaching.
that. Yeah, his player coach. He's Jackie Moon, but in the football. But you got me thinking about that with the rookie quarterbacks. I wonder if Houston could be a possibility to
I
back
don't think
up
so.
to back up C.J. Stroud.
There were proponents of Davis Mills being good enough to start a year ago. Again, like it's crazy that Trey Lance has been viewed as good enough to be a backup on some of these rosters as we just spitball here. Again, Arizona to me is the team that doesn't have even a starter, let alone a backup that would
and it's
be
the
better.
best opportunity for Trey Lance to prove himself.
Yeah, unless Arizona just wants the top pick.
Arizona's
which you could
asking,
probably get to even with Murray.
Arizona's asking the 49ers one question on Lance. How much does he like Call of Duty? That's the one question they need to know. Because if he doesn't like it at all, that's a leg up he has on Kyler Murray.
Speaking of quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa. Ryan Clark said what about Tua? Listen in.
5 for 7, 61 yards, and an interception. So rocky start to the game for Tua right there.
Tua when they got them tats.
Yeah, he did.
Tua said,
full sleeve.
Y'all think because I've been hurt, I ain't tough.
I'm gonna tell you what he wasn't doing. He wasn't in the gym. I bet you that.
Come on, man.
He wasn't with me. He might have spent a lot of time at the tattoo parlor. He was not at the dinner table eating what the nutritionist had advised.
Oh my!
He looks happy. Okay, he is thick.
He thick.
Yeah, he's built like girls work at Onyx in Atlanta right now on the bottom.
There's Ryan Clark on Tua, who's tried to beef up some compared to last year. He's doing the opposite of Russell Wilson from last year in Denver.
What show was that? That happened on?
That was on ESPN with
I think it was NFL Live.
NFL Live. Spitballing on the size of Tua Tagovailoa.
I mean, I like that they called him fat. Just say it.
Yeah, that was.
I don't know about the comparison to the Onyx. I've never been to the Onyx Club in Atlanta.
Don't want to based on that description.
But I mean, like former athletes, just saying that. I like that former athletes usually try to abide by some stupid code about, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna. Well, yeah.
And no one was saying Wilson was fat publicly last year.
Right, but like you could look and say everybody's so sensitive about it. Like, I get if you don't want to call someone in another line of work fat, but if you're the starting quarterback in the NFL, like it's okay to say, man, he looks like he's gained some lbs and not in all the right places. Right? Like there's plus body weight, that's good, and then there's other like, man, he looks like he's rock solid and bigger now versus like he looks a little fat.
He's training in MMA too, so maybe he could choke out Ryan Clark.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, maybe saying that, comparing him to an Atlanta stripper, will spark a fight. Maybe we'll actually see this fight, unlike Zuckerberg and Musk, because Musk apparently is not serious about it, and Zuck is. But
Davey,
I applaud the fact that Ryan Clark called him out and said, yeah, he looks fat.
Davey Hudson
No issues with
joins us. It is time for Let's Get Weird, and I wonder if there are fighting words with a certain defense attorney.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, talking now.
Guys, we've talked on multiple occasions about Chiefsaholic. You know, the Chiefs super fan that has been on the run, allegedly robbed a bank. Well, he finally had his day in court this past Friday, and that's still an ongoing case.
Was on the FBI's most wanted list, right?
True. Yes.
Top 5?
Yes. Xavier, I always mispronounce his last name, but Badubar.
You nailed it.
Yeah, so we'll go with that. But so his attorney, Matthew Merriman, perfect guy for the job if you ask me. I mean, Chiefsaholic, a absolute super fan of the NFL and the Chiefs. And here's what his attorney had to say during his press conference following their court hearing on Friday.
This is not Chiefsaholic's last drive. And he believes, and we believe, that when the final whistle blows and all of the facts are known, that he is going to be redeemed in the eyes of his community, in the eyes of his fans, and in the eyes of the Chiefs' kingdom.
That guy looks like he's trying to sell me a Bible door to door, first off. That press conference sounded like it was AI generated. It sounded like, remember the high school football story that said close encounter of the athletic kind that we highlighted yesterday when the AI wrote it and they tried to make sports puns?
Yeah. Are we allowed to play that again?
That is what that sounded like.
Here is Chiefsaholic's attorney after the hearing on Friday.
This is not Chiefsaholic's last drive. And he believes, and we believe, that when the final whistle blows and all of the facts are known, that he is going to be redeemed in the eyes of his community, in the eyes of his fans, and in the eyes of the Chiefs' kingdom.
My Redeemer.
Redeemed.
Also, not his last
in the
drive.
eyes of Chiefs' kingdom.
Not his last drive, and not that attorney's last part in that toupee either.
No, not at all.
I mean, just thinking of, he wrote this ahead of time, so he's sitting there, he's like, all right, what football references can I use for this? And it also reminded me, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but Zach Galifianakis live at the Purple Onion. There's a skit from there where Zach Galifianakis pretends he's got a twin brother named Seth, and he's like, he broke more than just man's law. He broke God's law, Seth's law, Murphy's law, law and order. And it's like, that's just kind of what I pictured whenever I saw this. And I was like, it took me back. Good times.
Not his last drive is a great way.
He will be
start.
redeemed. I'm thinking, like, how will the Chiefs redeem him?
Redeemed in the eyes of Chiefs' kingdom also.
In the eyes of the league.
It's not just important for him to be redeemed by the law and not go to prison,
banks?
but he'll be redeemed by the eyes
But
of Chiefs'
the funds that he allegedly stole.
Will they be redeemed in any way?
Well done. Find that, David. What's next?
Yeah, so actually we're going to stick within the court system, but there was a story that I just thought this was really interesting. But so a Maine man who is 86 years old, he has been convicted.
M-A-I-N-E, not M-A-I-N, just to be clear for the listener out there.
Yes, this comes out of, I believe it was Portland, Maine.
Portland.
But Napoleon
Great spot.
Gonzalez. He assumed his dead brother's identity back in 1965, but his brother died in 1939, and this man has been using that identity to collect Social Security, a bunch of other benefits that he's been taking as far as having passports made. And now, I mean, what do you do with an 86-year-old man who's just now, like, the chickens are coming home to roost here?
What got him caught if he's gotten away with this for so long?
And how did his brother die? Do we have that information?
It was an infant. It was like his twin brother is an infant.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Because it sounded a little bit like the plot to Mad Men when Don Draper assumed his war buddy's identity upon him dying in Vietnam.
I wonder what this guy did
or in Korea.
Need to assume his brother's identity.
That story.
The other part of it that made it interesting was in his claim he was saying that he was advised to do so by a government entity. So it's one, do you just believe this at all? Is this some sort of conspiracy theory that's being added to the conversation? I really don't know what to make of this because there's still a lot, it's from the local news, the Press Herald up in Maine. So the Portland Press Herald. So there's still more that's coming out on this, but it's just an interesting story where you find like an identity theft situation that's gone that far back into making sure that this was happening since 1965.
Was this going to tie back to those guys who testified that there are UFOs in some way? Is that the government entity that we're talking about? He was advised to take his brother's identity. Does he know about Area 51?
Here it was. He said the direction
what happened to that
of the
story, by the way? There were aliens and UFOs, and then that just went away.
Going back to that, so the government entity he says directed him to do this was the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations.
So he was abducted, is the claim, or something happened with that?
And while participating in an undercover operation in the 1960s.
And this man is now 87?
6, yep.
Okay. Well, maybe he'll be testifying before Senate sometime soon. Also,
it could also be a different.
Be another story that goes away in 2 days.
I want to know how they found it.
That's what I was kind of trying to look at another article to see if they had that because I couldn't find it. But he was using the passport to get into and out of Maine or of Canada at times. But
this man is younger than Jerry Reinsdorf. Can tie everything back in full circle to a previous story.
Oh, coming up, Chad, what has triggered SEC football programs and fan bases? There's a list that we'll react to. That's next here on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted and how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Fun show today. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Glad you're with us here on the OutKick Network. Clay Travis will join us tomorrow. Big thanks to Trey Wallace for joining us today. Also, Christian Okoye, Joe Theismann. If you missed those chats, available wherever you download your podcast audio. Just search out Hot Mic and OutKick.
Clay on his Instagram story looked like he was playing Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, I saw
what
that.
he was doing. It was like a sound check in this nice, like, performance theater somewhere. I have no clue what he was doing. It was a Q&A
on the book tour
somewhere. Yeah, on his book tour. It was pretty impressive.
I think he goes live tonight with reaction, doesn't he?
We will.
With the debate.
I'm sure we'll ask him about it.
Chad, some of these responses on the list from Saturday Down South are debatable. Some are not. Each SEC fan base's biggest trigger currently for the football program. And let's just roll through these. We'll read off the responses from Saturday Down South, and then if we have a different one or one that we can debate, let's throw it in there. And it starts with Alabama, and the biggest trigger are the officials, the referees. You agree? It's right up there.
Yes, it's hard. So this is what's going to be difficult. This is great, by the way.
It's awesome.
Terrific job by Saturday Down South. I think most everyone's going to have the same favorite one in the comedy department on this one, and that is Vanderbilt's with just being sports.
All of these are pretty
as the trigger.
funny.
Some of them are better than others, but with Bama, I mean, this is a very much a football-centric.
It's got to be, because
trigger.
otherwise it would be Nate Oates and what happened in the basketball program. That would be the biggest trigger.
Yeah,
for the fan base.
Yes, yeah. Brandon Miller, I think would be. You could just put that there, and that'd be the biggest trigger for this fan base. But they're so successful. See, I would change this to it's not necessarily funny, but to me it would be Kirby Smart has passed Nick Saban.
That's a great one.
I would just put that sentence there and say that would be the biggest trigger to Bama fans.
See, I think,
and also they kind of think that. I think the things that trigger you the most is what deep down you believe there's a little bit of truth to, or you can't defend and can't fight. So then you just get anxious and mad when you hear it. And I think right now, back-to-back national championships, I mean, Nick Saban's the greatest college coach of all time, but you could certainly make that argument that the pupil has become the teacher in the SEC to an extent.
He's the one. He's the chosen one. Refs is a great one. Gary Danielson's got to be in like the top 5, top 10.
Gary Danielson could be in there for multiple programs also.
For Ole Miss, they say Alabama is the biggest trigger. I mean, put up or shut up. How can Alabama be the biggest trigger if, I mean, you're stealing their coordinator and your head coach with the connections there, with the hype, with Matt Corral, couldn't go to Tuscaloosa and win, got boat raced.
See, I would go with one word on this one. It's not Alabama. Cowbells. Would be the biggest trigger to Ole Miss with Mississippi State's fan base. I think the whole race situation historically, if you brought that up to Ole Miss fans, that would be a trigger topic for them.
Yeah, or just the mascot in general.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah,
that's good.
For the Ole Miss Rebels. Mississippi State academics. I don't think the academic rankings is the biggest trigger. I think it's just one word, Starkville.
Yes.
And that's it. I mean, if you're ranking Mississippi State low, it's like, oh, Starkville. I don't think of academics first. I think of Starkville, their location. That would be the biggest trigger for Bulldogs fans.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I don't think poor academic rankings. I think Cowtown.
Yes.
You know, like if you're going to get an argument with Mississippi State fan, like, hey, did you milk the cows or did you slaughter them on campus when you were doing that? Because it's very much an ag-centric, middle of nowhere place that does not have a lot going on.
And both fan bases
I love
right now.
agriculture. This is not me making fun of agriculture. That's just the knock on Starkville. Is it's a hole in the wall, nothing place in the middle of Mississippi.
Chad, maybe you would make the list for both Ole Miss and Mississippi State because you left them out of the NFL of college football 32 list.
Didn't hear from a lot of them, though. I think they kind of know their place. I really think it's two fan bases. I applaud self-awareness. And if you're self-aware enough not to bitch at me about my list and knowing that you probably don't belong, then I hats off to you.
The Florida Gators.
I can say nothing bad to you when you're aware of that.
Maybe the biggest trigger would be the Swamp Kings if Untold actually did what Untold claims to be doing with the series Swamp Kings.
I don't want to make a murder pun here, but the biggest trigger is Aaron Hernandez.
Well, and that's just saying the name is the trigger. Right?
Aaron Hernandez would be the biggest trigger.
Yeah.
I don't think shoe throw.
Shoe throw is the answer.
That's not one of the bigger moments in Florida history. Or,
jean shorts, maybe.
I'll give you another triggering topic for them. Urban Meyer heart attack.
That's it.
Urban Meyer health episode. Or Aaron Hernandez. This is one that's not good by Saturday Down South. I should have written this one for them.
LSU. Fan base biggest trigger is Ohio State claiming Joe Burrow. I still think it's corn dogs. That LSU fans smell like corn dogs.
The greatest insult in college sports is that I found out about this like 15 years ago for the first time, and I could not stop laughing. Yeah. Auburn fans claim that LSU fans smell like corn dogs, and they talk about corn dogs every time they play LSU and get around them. That's one of the greatest college insults of all time. So I'm with you, Hutton. Corn dogs is way better than Joe Burrow being claimed by Ohio State.
Is Missouri's correct that they don't belong in the SEC?
Yeah. I think Missouri's another one I didn't hear a lot from about not being in the 32.
Well, not yet.
So they know their place also.
Drinkwitz, when he hears about this, will let everyone know. Right?
Yeah, I think.
And more power to him.
Missouri also has the benefit of, while they have not been great in the SEC, when they came in, they won the first two SEC East divisions they took part in with Gary Pinkel. So they came out like gangbusters, and they faded since, but they'll always have that on their side.
Maybe, again, like just thinking about what the fan base, Michael Sam comes to mind. That would be the other one. If we're going to point out the mascot at Ole Miss, that's the response at Missouri.
Yep.
South Carolina, here they have any discrediting to Willie B. That's Williams-Brice Stadium. Is that accurate, Chad? I give Williams-Brice Stadium a ton of credit for the atmosphere they create, despite where I view South Carolina in my SEC rankings of best atmospheres.
Yeah, I would think more Clemson.
On game day, I'm saying.
Clemson, just one word with that. I think some sandstorm slander might be triggering.
But it's all over social, though. I don't see a ton of...
I don't think about the cockabooses. Do people make fun of that? That's kind of a weird thing.
They play into their name, though, on merch. You know?
I don't hear a lot of bashing of Williams-Brice Stadium. I feel like of the SEC programs, you commonly hear two of the more underrated football fan bases would be South Carolina and Kentucky.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky, known as a football school, we'll get to them, but it's kind of an underrated football fandom there as well, and environment at times. Not always great, but sometimes really good.
Rolling through.
South Carolina, most of the time, really good, the environment in that stadium.
A funny exercise here, the SEC fan base's biggest triggers through Saturday Down South. Texas A&M buying recruits.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely
it. It was Texas.
Yeah.
And now it's buying. That's it. It's Saban.
Buying recruits and Saban. It's the combo of that. There's the cocktail involved. It's not just buying recruits, but it's that Nick Saban would dare to talk about buying recruits because Nick Saban has bought recruits before. And if it wasn't Nick Saban, it was boosters or people in his program. As I've long said, Jeremy Pruitt probably didn't learn how to cheat when he got to Knoxville as a head coach. He worked at Alabama for a while. I think that if we asked Billy Lucci, he would agree. It is the hypocrisy of calling out A&M for doing it. Not that they're going to deny doing it. I've not met any A&M people that just flat out say, "Oh yeah, this would never happen here."
It's nearly a compliment.
Things don't go on. Yeah, so
because you're viewed as a threat of Saban saying it publicly.
I mean, I'm triggered just reading this right now, so it definitely works for A&M fans.
Would Vanderbilt fans be triggered, Chad, based on the response here?
Oh, Vanderbilt fans would list their accomplishments in bowling and their college baseball national titles, all of that. They'd go right into that.
The Fanbases trigger here is sports.
Yeah, sports that we're talking about at Saturday Down South is football and sometimes men's basketball. Those are the sports that make the money. Those are the sports they're talking about. This is the funniest one.
It's
if you're just giving a one-word description of something that triggers a fan base, sports.
Well, their fan
is
base,
a great
though,
answer.
would want, it's the attention to sports. It's the lack of detail or care from the powers at be that
well, it's also
make those decisions.
I'm going to give Vandy a compliment here.
They're trying to change it.
It's a compliment to their school. It's the most elite academic school in the SEC. So they're always going to fall back on, you're going to be serving me fries one day because you went to X state school and I'm a Vandy fan, right? Mm-hmm. That's always going to be the comeback by them. Oh, we're concerned about finding a cure for cancer while you guys are concerned about your outside linebacker rotation.
Yeah.
That's the Vandy response to everything. So what would trigger them? A diss about sports. And that's why this is the perfect one. I have no complaints with that one for Vandy.
Auburn triggered by Brian Harsin? Is it because of the hate, like they're mocked for even hiring him, or is it the fact that they hired him?
I think I don't
think
it's
How do you
Brian.
view it?
No,
the fans hate the fact that they even brought in Boise's
I think
coach?
they hate Brian Harsin more than anything. I would say this would be a similar trigger to A&M, that Auburn's a big-time cheating program. I think that's what would trigger their fan base, because what would they do? They would do the same thing A&M does, point, in their case, up the road to Alabama and say, oh, we cheat? Okay, we've been caught a bunch. And Auburn is a victim of, we're the smaller program in the state, fan base-wise. We have to do whatever it takes to compete with Alabama. And to do that, you got to get your hands dirty. That's been their history.
There will be a new answer next year if Vegas odds point to Heisman winner Bo Nix.
If Harvey Updike wasn't dead, they probably would have gone with that one.
That one, or the unbeaten year that they're not in the championship.
Yeah, Carnell Cadillac Williams that season.
There you go.
2004.
For Arkansas, is the biggest trigger Chad Morris? Chad, knowing Chad's the way you do.
I don't think so. Honestly, I think it's sort of lazy on this list part to just list one coach, because every program's had a really bad coach or someone that spurned them or did something. I don't think it's that with Arkansas.
I think it's just being overlooked.
I would say if you want to go coaching, I'd say Bobby Petrino's neck brace as a triggering thing to say or talk about.
Or still
Arkansas.
talking about past coaches instead of the one that fits perfectly in Sam Pittman. Maybe that's too long of a response there for this graphic.
I'll tell you one that I've heard from Arkansas fans a lot. If you say bottom half of the SEC as a program, that will trigger them.
For Georgia, is it that Bama's wide receivers were hurt, and that's why Georgia ended up taking them down and surpassing them? Jameson Williams tears his ACL. That's it.
That's a good one.
Tennessee,
that's a good one.
The response here for biggest trigger is Kiffin. I think Kiffin could hold a parade in Knoxville.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I think it would be something Florida related. Tennessee fans will know this name. Jabbar Gaffney comes to mind. The catch, no catch in 2000 that should have been a Tennessee win in that game. I think
Kiffin carrying the golf ball into the presser, though, after that game. That's, but you still bring
But Kiffin, though, is a weird sort of figure because I know a ton of Tennessee fans that secretly love Kiffin.
Yeah.
Still to this day, they had a petition to bring him back.
Could just be 98, too.
It's good that it lights a flame because some hate and some love in the Tennessee fan base, but it's not universal. I know plenty of people that actually secretly kind of like Kiffin.
It was near universal prior to Josh Heupel arriving.
Yeah, now there's less concern.
Yeah, now you can hate
because Tennessee just had a season where they were better than Ole Miss for the entire season.
And UK, biggest trigger for the football fan base is that it's a basketball school.
I think that and making fun of Kroger Field.
Oh, that's a great response.
Being made fun of as a grocery store, which, by the way, it's funny. Tennessee announced today that they now have a Food City sponsorship at Thompson Bowling Arena. And a buddy of mine sent a text that said, "But can we still make fun of Kroger Field?" And I said, "Yeah," because this
better
is
known
yeah.
as K. Roger Field.
Yeah.
For those that want to point at Kentucky,
it's a basketball good exercise.
School. Basketball school is a great trigger, though, because that's how it's viewed, not just by Calipari, but everyone else.
It's a fun exercise. I'd encourage, if you're a fan of a different conference, to do that with your conference.
Also
Same
triggers
thing.
their head coach. That's
Think
for
about
sure.
it. No
Back
doubt.
at it tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.